Given Murugara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to oppose this bill with very good reasons, some of which are captured by the Committee on Agriculture when they actually retreated to look at the Senate bill. So, Speaker, so lastly, we were here on the 15th of August 2024 when the bill was supposed to be debated, as it had been tabled the previous day and seconded. The morning of the 15th, we woke up to very sensational reporting by some media houses, including social media, that this bill had dangerous clauses to the farmers of Dengu and that it had not undergone proper public participation. We actually looked at the bill. In as much as it has a lot that is wanting, it has not been properly drafted by the Senate. In fact, it's muddled up. It's a bill that ought to be cleaned, and it can only be cleaned if it is either rejected or massive amendments are made to it. But two reasons why I actually oppose this bill is because of want of public participation. Mung beans, unfortunately the name is not even suitable, because any Kenyan hearing us debating on mung beans would wonder what this is. It's a lot of English which is foreign to us. Dengu is the popular name of what we know as green grams, and I think that is the proper English. But we have a new name that has come up by which we should define these beans, which is foreign to all of us. Therefore, this bill should actually be titled the Dengu Bill, so that just like most of the crops that are known to us, we would know what law we are formulating and it relates to which crop, and Kenyans out there would be able to make a follow-up of what it is that we are saying. So if we are to amend at all this bill, we should call it the Dengu Bill. Number two, from the committee observations, it is clearly noted that the Dengu beans, or the Dengu itself, is grown in some counties that are in the eastern region of the country. Those counties include Kitui, Makwiny, Tharaka Nithi, Machakos, Embu, Meru, Taita Taveta, and Kirinyaga. However, it is not captured in the Senate report that this bill was actually taken to those farmers so that it can be debated under public consideration. So Kenyans, and especially the farmers in these areas, including my own area of Tharaka, in Tharaka Nithi, on the 15th of August 2024, were extremely anxious when they were told some of the provisions which are in this bill. The reporting may not have been accurate, but the information to them was that there was a law being formulated to regulate the growing of dengu in the country, but that law was not taken to them for approval, and therefore, including myself, we have been instructed to actually reject this bill. Number two, when we look at the public participation, even by the Committee on Agriculture, it was through adverts. Adverts were placed in the papers. The public did not respond, apart from a few corporations which have interest in the crop, including the research institutions. The net effect was this: we have a bill that has not undergone proper public participation. This bill should actually be withdrawn. It should actually be rejected by this House if it cannot be withdrawn, so that first and foremost we have proper public participation. Take the bill to Tharaka so that it goes round. take the bill to Kitui County, take it to Meru, Embu, Kirinyaga, Taita Taveta, Kitui, Machakos, and Makwiny, so that citizens can actually discuss the contents of the bill. Number two, I oppose the bill because it does not seem to address the problems that bedevil this crop to the root. The Committee on Agriculture has made very important observations that the crop, in spite of being grown widely, does not fetch a lot in the market. This is because we have not had proper production husbandry of the crop, and also the government has not given the support that is required. The net effect is, if we are to have a law on the dengue beans or the mung beans or whatever they are called, or whatever they are going to be called, then we must see clearly what role the government is going to play. If farmers are to be registered so that they get government help on growing this crop, the mode must be clearly set out so that there is no misinformation. Because the misinformation that is doing the rounds in the counties is that you will not be able to grow dengue unless you are registered with the county government. And that failure to register with the county government will attract a fine of not more than 1 million shillings or a prison term of 2 years or both. That may not be entirely correct from this bill, but farmers need to understand exactly why they are being called upon to actually register. We must also have clearly defined roles of those persons who actually buy dengue, and they are known as brokers. These are the people who have actually confined the growers of dengue, including those in the Raka, to penalty because they buy this crop at very cheap prices. Therefore, we must have regulations on how the pricing, the marketing, and everything else that goes with the selling of the crop is regulated. Another reason why I oppose this bill is that it has provisions regarding what the county governments are supposed to do. And those provisions are elaborate. That the county government will do this and that. The county government is prescribed to do as follows. The net effect of which is for the House of Parliament, the Senate and the National Assembly to make rules and regulations regarding county governments. I do not think this House has the power to do so because counties are devolved units and they have their own assemblies. It is those assemblies that are supposed to make laws governing what county governments do. Therefore, in as much as the Agriculture Committee has proposed elaborate amendments to the bill, I still feel this bill is not properly done. It was not properly drafted. In fact, the Senate never thought through about this bill. It appears to have been rushed, as a result of which it has found itself here when it is half-baked. We must remove that half-baking by actually returning this bill to the Senate so that they can give it a proper consideration. Once a proper bill is formulated through proper public participation and we are made to contribute to it, we will no doubt support it because the dengue crop requires a very elaborate law that is going to help us grow this crop. We are able to produce it and we are able to market it as is required. In the countries like India and the others that are cited here, the crop is actually grown in what I would term as systematic production. Here in Kenya, it is grown as ad hoc. We must bring this to an end. With those remarks, I do oppose the bill.
John Waluke, are you for this bill? No, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not contributing on this.
Beatrice Elachi, are you for this bill? No.
No, Speaker.
Maina Madenge, are you for this bill?
No, Mr. Speaker.
Jerry Maina, are you for this bill?
No, Speaker.
Daniel Carrido, are you for this bill?
No, Mr. Speaker.
Then get off the screen. Kuria Kimani, are you for this bill? Justice Kemei, are you for this bill? The Ndengu bill. Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to the mung beans bill. Mr. Speaker, the bill, when it came from the Senate, we looked at it as a Committee of Agriculture. And indeed, the way the Honorable Murungaru puts it, we made quite a number of changes to be able to support the Senate who originated the bill. When we did this, Mr. Speaker, we recognized that mung beans, or ndengu, as is famously known in this country, is a very critical crop when it comes to food nutrition and when it comes to food self-sufficiency in this country. And given a regulatory environment that is ideal, we will be able to meet the objectives of having this crop in this country. Mr. Speaker, the issue of public participation has come in. We as a Committee of Agriculture did our level best within the confines of the time given in terms of preparation of the bill. Let me put it very clearly, Mr. Speaker, that we are not in bringing this bill to Parliament asking for the formation of another parastatal to govern the growth and marketing of mung beans. We are simply saying let's have the crop included among the scheduled crops which are being handled by the Agriculture and Food Authority in this country. That way, we will be able to make sure that the environment in which it is promoted, the environment in which it is grown, the environment in which it is marketed is governed by the laws of this country. The concerns raised by Honorable Murungaru were addressed. And we would wish that instead of us throwing away the bill, let us look at it at the committee stage and make the necessary recommendations so that this bill can be used to improve the growth of mung beans in this country. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I do support and maybe ask my colleague who is in front of me to bring in the changes he so desires so that we can have this crop governed in terms of regulatory purposes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ekomas Mutuse, are you for this bill? No.
Mr. Speaker, I can contribute.
No, you can. Are you?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the mung beans bill, which is a Senate bill. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, ndengu is majorly grown in the southeastern region of this country, Tharaka and other ASO regions. And therefore, it is an important crop in terms of the household economies of the constituents whom I represent. Mr. Speaker, principally, we support the fact that we need a legal regime to regulate the production, marketing, and value addition for mung beans rather than ndengu, so that our farmers can maximize on their farming. As you would appreciate, Mr. Speaker, currently, ndengu is neither classified as a food crop, neither is it classified as a cash crop. And for that purpose, and for the lack of a legal regime, there has never been a channel for government funds, taxpayers' money, to assist farmers in terms of how they farm, produce, market, and value add ndengu. And therefore, principally, we support this law for for that particular purpose. And I would wish to agree with members who have raised concerns in terms of the possibility of levying farmers. And I know because I have discussed with farmers in my constituency. Farmers are averse that should the law pass in its current form, there will be levied monies so that growing ndengu will become a privilege of a few because it will attract levies. And rather than throwing away the bath water with the baby, I am of the opinion that we can propose amendments at the committee stage so that we cure some of these rather oppressive provisions in the Senate bill. Mr. Speaker, secondly, where I come from, our people do not farm coffee. Our people are not farming cotton as it should be. Our people are not farming tea. And therefore, essentially, there is need to have pulses, which are ndengu, peas, and others, including fruits in future, as a cash crop for that particular region. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I support the proposed mung beans bill with amendments. We will also be proposing at the committee stage, Mr. Speaker, that we change the title of the bill from mung beans to ndengu, because I am sure many in this country, including members of parliament, are hearing mung beans for the first time. It is a strange word. And there is no need to import words from other jurisdictions when already in Kenya we know that ndengu is ndengu. So we will also be proposing amendments so that it is no longer mung beans bill. We will be proposing that we call it ndengu bill, so that if this house so passes it, then it will be the Ndengu Act. Mr. Speaker, with that, I support and will be proposing amendments to cure some of the oppressive provisions that have been highlighted by our people through media and also by also reading the law, realizing the issue of levies and the issue of the title. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now there is no more. Charles Ngusia. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And
Mr. Speaker,
you are not on the screen.
from the onset, let me say I'm supporting this bill, Mr. Speaker. But with the reservation that we need to make some amendments as put by Honorable Murugara. Mr. Speaker, let me start by thanking our Senator Kitui County who came up with this bill. And I think it was for the importance of our people, the farmers actually growing this mung bean or ndengu, the way we have put it, Mr. Speaker. Some of the objective actually was to promote the productivity of this crop and generate higher income for the farmers, and others was to provide for framework for the implementation of this effective marketing strategy, Mr. Speaker. With all these factors, Mr. Speaker, I have listened very carefully to one of my colleagues who actually went through it, and I concur in totality that we need more public participation in order for this bill actually to go through, Mr. Speaker. But let me put, there was a lot of negative publicity on this bill, but I urge the members actually to read what is in the bill before opposing it, because I think it is very important, Mr. Speaker. It has gone to the extent of even setting the duties of the authorities who are supposed to be here, and I have gone through them. They are keenly okay. Duties of the county executive, which is actually agriculture is an devolved function. And Mr. Speaker, I don't have much to say, but I'll be going through this bill and proposing some of the amendments which are contentious, especially the fees, levies being done on it. With those few remarks, I support.
Mulemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. From where I come from, the mung beans are not grown. But having been a keen follower of the matters of this bill, and I was there when the bill was moved, Honorable Speaker, I want to report to you that one item I noticed about the bill when it was being moved by the Chair Agriculture, the bill itself was far much shorter.
Zengu.
Yes.
Yes.
The bill itself was far much shorter than what was later added on by the committee members in terms of proposal amendments and the other issues that they wanted to change on that particular bill. In fact, the committee itself had a much longer story than the bill itself. That was the first thing I noticed. Number two, Honorable Speaker, I had the privilege of sitting where you are that particular day, and I had to call one of the professionals in agriculture to ask, what are these mung beans? Because I did not know what mung beans were. So I was later told this was ndengu. But later on the next day, what I noticed is that the publicity this bill had was extremely negative. And it looked like the way it was being framed, especially for those members of parliament who come from areas where these beans are grown on ndengu, it looked like the farmers feel and know that if the bill goes through, then there will be punitive aspects to them to pay for them to grow the crop. And I noticed that there was no understanding between the people whom the bill was being made for and the bill itself per se. And therefore, it looked like there were royalties being put on the people who will be growing these ndengus. I propose that two things have to happen for the sake of a good bill and for the farmers of the mung beans or dengu. That either the committee must take it up very thoroughly and do extreme total change, including the title possibly, or we take it back to the Senate so that it's properly done with public participation. Honorable Speaker, I think I take the second option. I see a situation whereby somebody knows a good idea but has not shared with the people on the ground. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Phyllis Barto, are you for this? There being no interest in further contributions, I call the mover to reply. Where is Honorable Nzengu? Why has he orphaned his own bill? Clerk. Honorable members will defer the bill to be put on the order paper for Thursday for the mover to reply. Those who have an interest, tell Honorable Nzengu to come and reply to the bill. Next order.
Order number 10, the coffee bill, Senate Bill number 10 of 2023, second reading.
Majority Leader. Owen, is it you? Dr. Mutunga, you are the one moving?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Honorable Chair. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to move the coffee bill, which is the Senate Bill number 10 of 2023. Honorable Speaker, this bill was read the first time on 16th of April 2024 and subsequently committed to the Committee on Agriculture and Livestock Development for consideration. Honorable Speaker, the committee has considered this bill and invited stakeholders for public participation to submit memoranda and their comments on the bill, and the same has been captured in the revised version of the bill and will be brought to this House during the third reading. Honorable Speaker, a brief background on the coffee industry in this country. Coffee, Honorable Speaker, was first planted in Kenya upon introduction in Taita Hills at a place called Bura. That was in 1893. In 1900, coffee was planted at Voi under irrigation on trial basis. And later on, in 1904, it was planted in Kikuyu. That is how coffee found itself in the Kenyan Islands. Honorable Speaker, today, coffee is grown in 33 counties out of 47. So it's really a crop that is of socioeconomic nature in most of the counties of this country. It is grown by not less than 800,000 smallholder farmers and not less than 4,000 estates, which means it is both an estate or land scale and a small scale older crop. In the 1980s, Kenya was a leading exporter in the region on coffee. But now, coffee is number 3 in terms of our exports after tea and horticulture. There is, however, great potential for coffee to get back home as the leader crop in terms of export, because we have what it takes. We have the good soils, we have good varieties innovated by our research institutions, we have good farmers who can produce coffee, and we have the right climate. What has been missing in this country, or what has affected the coffee farmers, are the challenges that I might wish to outline, Honourable Speaker. One of the key challenges the farmers of this country face is that coffee is low income earning, despite being a high income crop. Kenyan coffee is very high standard, is of very high quality, is a preferred commodity across the globe. In fact, in most of the outlets, Kenyan coffee would find itself as a specialty crop in most of the prestigious markets. There is also delayed payment to the farmers as a challenge, and in most cases, the payments are meager. And that's one of the things that has affected the farmers of this country. The other issue, Honourable Speaker, is the mismanagement of the cooperatives through which the Kenyan farmers process their coffee. Coffee is initially taken to the primary cooperatives where the primary processing, or what is called pulping, takes place. So, the other issue that has been affecting the Kenyan farmers is the lack of direct access by the farmers themselves to the Nairobi Coffee Exchange. This is the coffee trading platform. Lack of access makes the farmers not understand exactly what happens, and therefore deals cut around there probably may impact upon them negatively. Honourable Speaker, in the initial stages, coffee have performed very well in this country. Kenya lags behind countries like Ethiopia and Uganda in terms of production, and in some cases, productivity. Productivity in the sense that we are looking at the yield per tree and production in terms of the collective total that we produce. Honourable Speaker, smallholder farmers who place on the market 70% of the coffee that we sell suffer poorer productivity and higher production costs compared to the estates. In this case, it is expensive to produce coffee on a small scale. This is mainly due to the governance issues that you find in the cooperatives, as I mentioned earlier, the insufficiency of the tariff processing, which burdens smallholder farmers with higher processing costs. The lack of transparency within the factories themselves and the management attributes, and therefore the farmers do not get to know the exact reality about their crop. Productivity of coffee in this country, Honourable Speaker, is very low. I wish to state that on average, a Kenyan farmer coffee tree would give us 2 kilos per tree, when we have the potential to get 20 kilos per tree, or even more. Honourable Speaker, on a small scale level, we can only get 2 kilos per tree. On large scale, because they have been able to improve a little bit on the management, we are able to get about 4 kilos per tree. That is still very little compared to what is possible. We should aim at not less than 20 kilos per tree because it is possible and it is happening right here in Kenya. On the other hand, Honourable Speaker, value addition for coffee has been very low. We are utilizing only 30% of the installed capacity to process coffee in this country, which means we have capacity to process a lot of coffee, but 70% of that capacity lays idle. Honourable Speaker, on the other hand, when you look at the milling the removal of parchment from the bin, the milling aspect of it, Honorable Speaker, we are only utilizing 13% of the installed capacity, which means 87% of the capacity stays idle. And this is because coffee was abandoned by the farmers out of the problems that I've highlighted. So value addition is poor, and therefore it means that most of the coffee in this country is not value added. Honorable Speaker, our consumption capacity as at now is 5% of the coffee that we produce. That means we sell 95% of the coffee. What that tells you is that the low processing capacity or value addition capacity of the country has only been able to turn around 5%, which we consume as a country. The rest of the coffee we sell as raw materials for others to process. We export jobs. Honorable Speaker, we need to embark on processing coffee in this country so that we can be able to employ our youth. There are several government interventions that are noteworthy. The government of Kenya has set up what we are calling Cherry Advance Revolving Fund through the Coffee General Regulations of 2019. This revolving fund is supposed to stabilize the prices of coffee. Honorable Speaker, as we speak, already about 5.2 billion shillings have been moved to the farmers through payments of at least 80 shillings per kilo through the use of this fund. However, these measures have not significantly turned the sector around as we expect, so productivity is still low and production is low. Honorable Speaker, we cannot miss out from comparing coffee in Kenyan coffee with the other countries and other sectors. The Kenya's position on coffee globally is very, very low. Kenya's coffee sector continues to be a vital part of the country's economy, yet we have not been able to capture our market. Honorable Speaker, we lost our quota in the world market. Kenya was exporting more than 120,000 metric tons of coffee, but we lost that quota because of mismanagement of the factories and of unbearance on the farmers on costs. Honorable Speaker, we lag behind a country like Uganda and our neighbor Ethiopia in terms of this processing of coffee and in terms of the turnaround amounts. In terms of productivity, as I said earlier, we are only able to realize 2 kilos on a small scale basis as a country, and we are also able to realize 4 kilos when it comes to large scale production. Other countries in our neighborhood are able to realize more. And Honorable Speaker, this is something we need to look at, and this is a mischief that has been cured through this particular bill. Honorable Speaker, when you look at market access, unlike Kenya, where smallholder farmers have limited access to the coffee exchange, other countries' farmers are able to access their coffee exchange platforms. That is something that needs to be looked into. When it comes to variety development, in terms of crop development, production of varieties through research, coffee research is domiciled in Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization as one of the research institutes. This is a specialized entity which should be reporting to a specific board to deal out the issues of productivity in terms of coming up with better varieties which are suited to better environments. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, this bill has come up to cure that particular mischief as well. Honorable Speaker, the donor dependency on the research institution, especially the Coffee Research Institute, ends up messing up or shifting the agenda. The agenda is influenced in the negative. It does not give us what we actually need. Honorable Speaker, the effect of all this is such that what brought all these issues is the abolition of the coffee research levy, which was around 2% of the coffee sold in 2016. That research levy, which was supporting our research institution to come up with better varieties like SL28, SL27, Ruto 11 and others, was abolished. Therefore, we indeed lose about 50% of the amount of money set to the coffee production or production research and productivity research in this country. And Honorable Speaker, the Research Institute does not only produce better coffee varieties. The Research Institute goes further to produce, to innovate, to do technological development, produce technologies for coffee, basically also come up with innovations and management practices. And these management practices are transferred to the farmers so that they can be able to deliver a better, crop in the sector. Honorable Speaker, let me just highlight a few issues on the bill itself. The current status is such that coffee is managed under the Agriculture and Food Authority as one of the directorates within AFA. AFA has been managing the crop development, the promotion, the marketing, and the regulation of the production and marketing of the coffee in this country. This bill comes in with very specific objectives. And one of the objectives, Honorable Speaker, is to promote a globally competitive coffee industry. Make sure that the Kenyan coffee is globally competitive. It also purposes to provide a framework for the registration and licensing of various players within the coffee sector. So the licensing and the registration is very well captured in the bill. It also comes in to delineate the roles of the national government and the roles of the county government and the roles of the regulatory institutions and the role of research, as it were. We have specifically, in this particular bill, as identified the Coffee Research Institutes and transformed it into a Coffee Research and Training Institute. It's going to be a Coffee Research and Training Institute because it will be conducting training on technologies, innovations, and management practices, so that our farmers can be able to get better varieties to produce based on the agroecologies and based on the sizes of the farm, so that we can intensify on productivity for us to get better production. Therefore, there is a specific objective to promote evidence-based coffee research and the delivery of extension services towards development of the coffee sector. And this is where we are talking about production of technologies, innovations, and management practices. The final objective, Honorable Speaker, is to provide a framework for the establishment of Coffee Development Levy. Coffee Development Levy will be established to basically look at how do we support the research in coffee, how do we support the regulatory function, how do we support the marketing function. One of the things we've not done well in this country is marketed our coffee. There are many outlets in this world which buy our coffee as green bean and therefore use it for elite market. It fetches a lot of money out there, and we are not able to benefit from that kind of money because we sell our coffee as raw green bean. Honorable Speaker, when you look at this particular bill, first of all, the first thing that the bill does is to try and transfer regulations from the Agriculture and Food Authority, the regulation of the coffee from the Agriculture and Food Authority to the Coffee Board of Kenya. We are recreating the Coffee Board of Kenya. On the other hand, Honorable Speaker, the research function of the Coffee Research Institute has been hived out of the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization and placed directly under the Coffee Board of Kenya so that it may be better instructed to deliver for this particular industry. Honorable Speaker, the Coffee Board is established to regulate the industry, managed by the board and the CEO, with clear functions, delegated authority, as well as powers. And these are captured on the first four from the fourth clause to the 22nd clause. It's a very comprehensive bill. Honorable Speaker, the county government functions are effectively captured between 23rd and 25th clauses, and they are basically majoring on enacting local coffee laws for the county or county-specific coffee laws and the registration of various, licensing of the variety of operators within the county. So we have made provisions for the registration of the variety of operators within every county. In terms of the regulation provision, Honourable Speaker, this covers the production itself and the registration of various operators, various growers, various millers, the roasters, the processors, and licensing various entities that would like to do business in coffee, as well as regular reporting. And this is captured in clauses 26 to 38 of the bill. Honourable Speaker, in terms of production and processing, the proposed legislation basically governs production, as it were, governs material import and material export of coffee, the certification processes, the traceability, which is very key in terms of international trading systems today. They demand to know where the coffee was produced and even how it was produced and how the social issues were taken care of. Was it produced by children? If it was produced by children or people who are under compulsion of some nature, they will not take that coffee. So they would like to know from which farm was it produced. So the bill is very careful to capture the traceability aspect. Honourable Speaker, coffee trending and marketing is also very well captured, and this is under the 449 to 39 to 59 clauses of the bill, which basically looks at the regulation at the local level, regulation at the national level, regulation of coffee at the international level, in terms of the trending patterns and in terms of the various aspects that need to be regulated and licensed, as well as the management of the exchange and the settlement to the farmers in terms of payment. That has also been very well captured in this particular bill. Quality assurance, Honourable Speaker, has also been very well captured in terms of ensuring compliance with the quality standards at the various levels through inspection and controls. And this has been captured in the bill if you look at clauses 63 to 60, no, clauses 60 to 62. Financial provisions of the coffee industry. This has also been very well captured. It specifies the funding, the various types of funding, including and development level, which has been very well specified in the bill, and also the routine audits, which basically secures the fund and ensures the fund has done the right job. This is captured in clauses 63 to 68. Honourable Speaker, Coffee Research and Training Institute, which I mentioned, has also been very well taken care of, which focuses on coffee research and training based in Kiambu, where it has always been, towards production and the dissemination of technologies, innovations, and management practices. Honourable Speaker, finally, the coffee bill talks about the financial provisions of the institute, which are provided for, and then the miscellaneous and transitional arrangement. Transitional arrangement because we have the staff who are right now in the coffee directorate. These staff members, the properties or the assets and liabilities of the coffee sector will need to transit from the Agriculture and Food Authority to the Coffee Board of Kenya. So the transition arrangement are captured very well in clauses 92 to 107. That is the extent to which the bill has been covered. Honourable Speaker, to close my submission, my comments on the bill, even as I move, let me just discuss a few issues. What are the key deliverables in this particular bill? What are the expectations to the Kenyans, especially the Kenyan farmer? The bill promotes evidence-based coffee research and delivery of extension services for the development of the coffee sector. So we shall have a consistent and sustainable research system that is going to deliver a better sector than before. It also focuses on addressing the governance issues in the cooperatives, which has been really the problem, which has been the cancer in this particular sector. And also, it looks at addressing the inefficiencies in the processing and reducing the costs to improve on productivity, particularly for the smallholder farmers who are really overburdened by the cost within the industry. In terms of regulations, Honourable Speaker, the bill proposes transitioning the regulatory and commercial roles currently undertaken by AFA to the board. It also additionally seeks to transit the research of coffee, from what I said, Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization to the institute, the Research and Training Institute. It also provides a framework for the establishment of the Coffee Development Levy, which is a fund that will sustain activities within the coffee. It also identifies the variety of institutions that will be participating in this particular industry. And these include, there are several legislations, Honorable Speaker, that are supportive to this particular legislation. And I wish to mention a few of them. The Crops Act is key, the AFA Act is key, Cooperative Societies Act is key, the Kauro Act, they will be somehow influenced by this particular bill. There are certain amendments. The Capital Markets Authority Act, as well as they are also going to be, and the amended version of the 2016 Capital Markets Authority is going to be also affected. And the authority to regulate spot commodity markets, such as the Nairobi Coffee Exchange, has been given by this particular bill. The Warehouse Receipting System, as it were, Act of 2019, has also been invoked in this particular legislation, where the Act provides for the warehousing of agricultural goods in government warehouses and facilities. And coffee is one of the commodities that we have to securely store, because once it is in green, in a bean form, the green bean, coffee will be always stolen because it's actually regarded as a green gold. In terms of promotion, Honorable Speaker, the bill aims at promoting globally competitive coffee industry by providing the framework for registration and licensing of various players along the value chain. It also promotes the vertical integration of the coffee value chain at the production level and achieves economies of scale in managing the risk within the coffee industry. Honorable Speaker, the bill also goes further to set up, during the discussions within coming up with this bill, the Committee on Agriculture and Livestock did invite stakeholders to submit their memoranda. And several stakeholders, Honorable Speaker, brought their memorandum. I wish to mention that we had invited and we got memoranda from the Nairobi Coffee Exchange itself, the Capital Markets Authority, a certain farmer called Mr. Caleb Kipyegon, the Council of Governors submitted their memoranda, Kenya Association of Manufacturers were there, Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency, or KEBROPA, also promoted their memoranda, as well as the Coffee Reforms Steering Committee, which was involved in going through the coffee study of the coffee itself. So the stakeholders' feedback, Honorable Speaker, I may wish to highlight a few as I close. Most of the stakeholders supported the enactment of the Coffee Bill 2023. They said it's a good way to move, good way forward, and they also indicated that we need to adopt this particular legislation. They also observed that the Coffee Board of Kenya would increase efficiency in the sector due to reduced bureaucracy and also expedient processes. Honorable Speaker, they were keen on improving farmer income through fair pricing. They were keen on better market access. They were very particular on improving the farming techniques and also very particular on enhancing the global competitiveness because because of the improved quality of the coffee itself and the issue of traceability. Honorable Speaker, there are certain amendments that this bill has basically brought about. And these amendments, the stakeholders proposed amendments aimed at enriching the bill itself, such as ensuring there is no overlap in mandates between the county and the national government, there is no overlaps in mandate between the different institutions. It also basically provided incentives such as tax holiday for some of the prospective investors in this particular sector, where which would lead to reduction of the corporate tax rate for new coffee processors in order to motivate processors to come and process coffee in this country. As we said, only about 13% of the processing capacity is utilized, as it were. Honorable Speaker, as I close, I'd like to thank my committee for the work they did and thank the Speaker and the supporting God from the Secretariat. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wish to move.
Seconder, who's your seconder? You haven't invited your seconder. Who's your seconder, Honorable Mutunga?
Honorable Speaker, I would like to ask the Deputy Leader Majority to second.
Thank you.
But I was supposed to move. I asked him to move.
Yeah, I don't know if he knows anything about coffee, but
Honorable Speaker,
hopefully you briefed him.
Honorable Speaker, I would like to put it on record This is a bill by the leader of majority. And this office was supposed to move this bill, but I asked Dr. Mutunga to do that. And then that he allows that I do it, second him on behalf of the leader of majority, which is proper. You know, so allow.
That's definitely not, and I get the context.
So allow the majority's office to be heard on
Yes.
this. Then now others can debate.
I agree.
Whether
I
I
get
know
the
how to farm
context
coffee
now.
or not. Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. Honorable Speaker, I beg to second that the Coffee Bill 2023, Senate Bill number 10 of 2023, be read for the second time. Honorable Speaker, I would like to thank the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock for the remarkable job they did in looking and dissecting this bill and bringing it here so that it goes for the second reading. The Honorable Speaker, the bill proposes to reorganize the coffee industry by transitioning the regulatory and commercial roles currently undertaken by AFA, the Agricultural Food Authority, to the Coffee Board of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, this bill further seeks to transition the research of coffee currently undertaken by the Coffee Research Institute under the Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization to the Coffee Research Institute. Honorable Speaker, the chairman has highlighted some of the key parts and aspects of this bill, but I don't want to go into that, but just to say a few things, Honorable Speaker, that the bill provides, Honorable Speaker, for the establishment of the Coffee Board of Kenya. You remember when we were young, there used to be a program on radio, and you'd hear a song on Coffee Board of Kenya. Meaning, therefore, that particular time, coffee was being managed by an authority, by an organization that looked and knew and drank and slept and ate only coffee. And it thrived because there was this organization that looked after coffee and everything about coffee. This was also about other crops, tea, pyrethrum, and other organizations. But this parliament, in its wisdom, brought something called AFA and bundled all of them into one body. And this animal called AFA has actually cannibalized some of the crops, and the development of these crops, Honorable Speaker, have been stunted because of that decision. Honorable Speaker, it is important, Honorable Speaker, that...
What's your point of order, Honorable Mutunga?
Mutunga, next time I want to allow you to move a bill.
Honorable Speaker, I've had some references to AFA as an animal. I was involved in the formation of AFA. I was in the interim management committee.
Yes.
We did not form an animal. We formed a parastatal, a state corporation called Agriculture and Food Authority. I don't know members in order to say that AFA is an animal.
Honorable Speaker, you know, if you're not a native...
I think that was said in jest.
Is not a native speaker of English, he may not understand English idioms. So I want to put him in his place. Honorable Speaker.
Mutunga, you have been given sufficient opportunity to canvass this issue. I think let's allow others.
Honorable Speaker, this bill also provides, as you read the bills, for the role of county governments to enact county-specific legislations so that they can, those counties that are growing coffee, they can have county-specific legislation on coffee to move the crop forward and ensure that coffee takes its center stage in this country as one of the key agricultural crops, and that spurs economic development. For example, Honorable Speaker, coffee, if you go to America, you go to all parts of the world, they'll talk about Kenyan coffee. And we have an obligation to the world to ensure that this taste, this unique taste of Kenyan coffee still is celebrated over the world. And therefore, this parliament has the opportunity to reset the Coffee Board of Kenya, give it its arsenal, give it all the specific ingredients that it requires so that Kenyan coffee continues to taste as Kenyan coffee and is traded there and brings a lot of foreign exchange to this country and spurs agricultural development in this country. Honorable Speaker, as well stated by Honorable Mutunga, the Honorable Chair and the member for one of the best constituencies in this country, a professor of agriculture, Honorable Speaker, coffee marketing and trading is well captured in this bill. Coffee, trading, and marketing. the farmers will grow the coffee. But without a robust mechanism providing for trading and marketing of coffee, we may not achieve what we want to achieve as a country. So this bill properly provides for coffee trading and marketing in clauses 49 to 54. In this, Honorable Speaker, is anchored what we would like to do to move from just mere growing of coffee to manufacturing, to marketing, and to the branding of Kenyan coffee so that it becomes the best in the world, and therefore benefiting this country. And this government has invested a lot of money in terms of developing this sector, and the payoff can only come, Honorable Speaker, if coffee is properly traded and marketed to ensure that we take our center stage, Honorable Speaker, in the world. Honorable Speaker, a lot of crops provided for, and I know, Honorable Speaker, you brought something amazing here once about pest control and uses of, all those pesticides and all that. But this speaks to quality assurance. You see, this bill provides for proper quality assurance of coffee to ensure that coffee, we do not just grow coffee, market coffee, but we grow quality coffee, market quality coffee, and the world drink quality coffee. And that's why in clauses 60 to 62 of this bill, Honorable Speaker, is provided for quality assurance mechanism to ensure that coffee imports conform to standards prescribed by laws, not only in the country, but also international standard, so that our coffee stands out. Honorable Speaker, research. A lot of the crops in this country have failed because as we started these crops over the years, research was not being done. Research was not funded, and therefore there wasn't any research output to make the products better. But, Honorable Speaker, if you look at this bill, within clauses 69 to 74, this bill provides for Coffee Research and Training Institute of Kenya, a body, corporate, an institute that will ensure proper research is done on coffee variety, on coffee, all aspects of coffee, to ensure that there is growth of the industry. The lack of research in a crop means that that crop will be stunted. But if you have proper research and research institutes, then if new varieties will come, the upgrade of the crop will come in, and new products will even be established to ensure that this crop that is important to not only Kenya but also the world continues to grow and continues to be a better crop. Honorable Speaker, in this bill, transitional clauses are provided because we want to move from AFA to Coffee Board of Kenya, or move the crop from AFA, the armpit of AFA, to Coffee Board of Kenya. And therefore it is very important, Honorable Speaker, that we have transitional clauses. So clause 100 to 107, Honorable Speaker, provides for the transition of assets and obligations and Agriculture and Food Authority with respect to the coffee sector, and legal proceedings are provided, Honorable Speaker, reference to written law, staff of the Coffee Directorate and AFA, and all these people, so that people do not start feeling that when this bill is passed, people who are in the Directorate of Coffee and the AFA will lose their jobs. It is taken care of properly in this law, so that no one is scared that when Coffee Board of Kenya is set up, therefore they will lose jobs, they will lose their remuneration, they will lose a lot of things. This bill provides for proper transitional clauses to ensure there is a smooth and seamless movement from AFA to Coffee Board of Kenya. It is provided, Honorable Speaker, in this law. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, the first schedule to this bill contains provisions relating to the conduct of business and affairs of the Board of Directors, which, Honorable Speaker, are clauses that we find in any other law, and therefore I do not need to belabor that. But I want to say this. In conclusion, this bill will provide a legal framework which will enable the sector to be more profitable in the country, increase efficiency due to reduced bureaucracies and expedited processes, improve the farmer income, which is very important, through fair pricing, better market access, and improved farming techniques, and enhanced global competitiveness as a result of improved quality and innovations. Honorable Speaker, I urge members to support the coffee bill. I know the honorable member, who I'm her doctor, said that I don't know anything about coffee. Now you can see I know so much. so much about coffee. I could even articulate issues of coffee better than she can, or better than they can. Honorable Speaker.
What's your point of order, Honorable Wamushomba?
Madam Speaker, whereas I have no issues with the Deputy Leader of Majority seconding this bill, which I personally support because I am a coffee farmer and I represent farmers, he needs to substantiate. He has said that he's my doctor. In what aspect is he my doctor? Because I am not sure whether I have ever had or seen him practice medicine in any way. So you need to come out very clearly on records.
I think he meant he has a doctorate in the area of coffee. Okay, proceed. So what do you have to respond?
Honorable Speaker, before I sit down, I actually want to say, and I second. And I also want to second the Honorable Wamushomba to stand up and speak on the bill. I want to second her to do that. Thank you.
Hold
As
on,
her
hold
doctor.
on, Honorable,
Yes.
hold on, Honorable Wamushomba. You're next. So we first have the Honorable Member for Molo, Honorable... Honorable Wamushomba, you're such a hurry to debate the bill that I'm forgetting to propose the question. Honorable members, I now propose the question that the Coffee Bill, Senate Bill number 10 of 2023, be read a second time. I think we have the Honorable Member for Molo, Honorable Kuria Kimani.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. First of all is to congratulate the Leader of Majority Party, the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, for bringing up this particular bill, the Coffee Bill of 2023, and the Chair and the Committee of the Departmental Committee on Agriculture for really doing justice to the recommendations made on this bill, and the report that they have tabled this afternoon really speaks a lot that they have the interest of the coffee farmers at heart. Honorable Speaker, I've had a chance to check on various research that has been done by credible institutions such as Carlo, International Coffee Organization, the University of Nairobi, the Coffee Board of Kenya, the Coffee Research Institute, among other reputable research institutions in this republic, on what has been ailing the coffee sector, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there are around 6 reasons or 6 problem statements that have been said that have been clearly been agreed upon by these particular research institutions that have been ailing the coffee sector, Honorable Speaker. One of them is the low and volatile prices of coffee. So whereas coffee is such a lucrative plant, especially in the international market, we've seen the price of this coffee both in the national, in the local market and in the international market fluctuate so much that it has led to unpredictable returns for farmers. And this has made farmers either move out from planting coffee or not getting the right returns for this investment, Honorable Speaker. And I was trying to compare that then, how does a coffee bill of 2024 then solve that particular problem of low prices and volatility? Honorable Speaker, I'm very impressed by the recommendation in the bill to introduce guarantee minimum returns that will ensure that the farmers will be assured of their respective prices for their coffee, Honorable Speaker. Further, I will be recommending to the committee and during the committee of the whole of the House to include further amendments to allow the way of ensuring that there is this guarantee minimum returns and stabilization of these prices by using modern forms of hedging against fluctuation in prices, such as using of futures and use of tokenization. Where, Honorable Speaker, with the current technology, it is possible for that coffee farmer in Kiambu or in Murang'a, from where else in the country, to put part of their coffee in the international market through tokenization and get investment and get return and better prices for their coffee through tokenization or through use. Again, this bill is proposing several amendments that will reduce the high cost of production of this particular plant. One of the greatest efforts that the current administration we have seen do is introduction of stabilized fertilizer as one of the ways of subsidizing the production of coffee, Honorable Speaker. In the subsequent amendments that we'll be seeing in this House, especially from the Finance and National Committee, would be to exempt duties and levies on inputs, on other inputs such as pesticides and such as pesticides control, Honorable Speaker, so that we can make the cost, we can reduce the cost of production on this particular product, Honorable Speaker. The other cost that has risen, the cost of production for coffee, has been lack of access to market. Access to credit, Honorable Speaker. But we are happy that this bill again is introducing a farmers stabilization fund, and this fund is supposed to be availed to coffee farmers at low interest rates, and therefore this will in a way hedge them against the high cost of production, especially the high cost of credit in this country, Honorable Speaker. The issue of aging coffee trees has also been targeted, has also been said as one of the reasons why the coffee sector has been Honorable Speaker. Now, the establishment of a research institution and a fund to actually fund that particular research institution then will make sure that the coffee trees or the coffee plants that will be available to our coffee farmers are those trees that are going to last longer and have much higher yields, and therefore tackling the other challenge that has been said as one of the challenges in the coffee sector, which is the aging of coffee trees, Honorable Speaker. The issue of poor corporate management in the cooperatives of these coffee farmers has also been a thorn in the flesh for farmers, Honorable Speaker. I'm impressed that also, Madam Speaker, now this bill also seeks to address this particular challenge by having more stringent regulations affect this bill now by it addressing itself this issue of poor corporate management by these cooperatives will be a great source of relief to our coffee farmers, Honorable Speaker. The issue of pests and disease control has also been a great contributor to the challenges that have been happening around the coffee sector. And again, the establishment of this research institute and proposed funding for this particular institute will now lead to better environmental friendly and cheaper ways of pest and disease control, so that farmers can have longer lasting trees and they can have better quality coffee that will going to give them maximum returns, Honorable Speaker. Lastly, a key challenge has also been said to be that of brokers and middlemen, but however, now this bill is proposing to have direct sales for export and licensing, and therefore farmers now will have a chance to sell directly to the local and national market, and therefore bypassing all those exploitative intermediaries around the coffee sector, Honorable Speaker. So looking at what research has shown as the challenges that they exist in the coffee sector, and looking at what this bill has done, Honorable Speaker, I am convinced that this particular bill as passed by the Agriculture Committee and as recommended in the detailed report the Agricultural Committee has done, is going to be the lifeline that the coffee farmers of this country have been looking forward to, so that those our people in those areas that grow coffee can be able to take their children to school, they can be able to live a good life, they can be able to take care of the expenses, they can be able to look at coffee as an investment, and not just think about uprooting them and selling off the land where that coffee has been planted out, because they are going to get a good return on the investment. And as I went up, Honorable Speaker, Jackie Chan once said that coffee is a language in itself. And I know during this time when there is a lot of political conversation around this country, this quote by Jackie Chan cannot speak to that any better, that coffee is a language by itself. And one Clark Globe said, I never laugh until I've had my coffee. The coffee farmers will not laugh until they've got better returns for their coffee. And I know this will make them get a laugh, because they are going to get a good return on the investment on their coffee. With that, I beg to support, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Githunguri, Honorable Gathoni wa Mushomba.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise on the onset to support this bill, because this is a bill that we have been waiting for as coffee farmers. as members of parliament who come from areas where coffee is grown. And this is a bill that some of us have spent quite a lot of time in the making. I remember we attended the Meru Coffee Conference to give our input to the formation of this bill. And I'm very excited that, Madam Speaker, finally this bill has seen the light of day, and it is my hope and sincere trust that we are going to do all it takes to make sure that the coffee bill becomes a law. Madam Speaker, as a farmer, I want to celebrate the return of the institution that supported many farmers with research in the early 80s, the late 80s, the early 90s, all the way up to the year 2003. This is when the Coffee Research Foundation was functional. And this is the institution that helped us to come up with the right breed and variety of coffee that is disease resistant, that is less expensive for the farmers, and gives the best quality and resistance to a lot of challenges. I am happy that Coffee Research Institute, hoping that it is still going to be domiciled where the Coffee Research Foundation buildings are, and I am happy and excited if it is going to be domiciled there, because majority of the people who worked there were my voters from Githunguri. My constituency borders the institution, and therefore I'll be happy to see this institution domiciled at the border between Roiro and Githunguri constituency. Madam Speaker, I am happy because finally coffee farmers will have seedlings. They will have support of research that is needed so that the varieties that they are going to continue planting are the right varieties that are going to give them the returns. Madam Speaker, I'm also very excited because I can see the bill has proposed the return of Coffee Board of Kenya. The institution that excelled coffee farming in Kenya in the early 2000s and the late 1990s, when our farmers earned a lot of money from the marketing activities that were done by the Coffee Board of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I am excited as a coffee farmer that this Coffee Board of Kenya is not only going to help us in profiling our coffee in the right way, but also represent us ably in the international market platforms where we have failed to market our coffee. I am excited as a farmer that the aspect of introducing direct sales for Kenyan coffee farmers is now something that is acceptable by law. The farmers who have capacity to market their coffee directly are now allowed by law, if this bill becomes a law, so that the farmers can experience the aspect and the pride of marketing their quality coffee anywhere in the world. Mr. Speaker, I am also happy that the DSS, the direct settlement system, has been entrenched in law by this bill. This is a system that is going to allow coffee farmers to receive their money from any sale directly in their account without going through a roundabout of many other intermediaries who are taking away farmers' money. So this DSS, even as we welcome it, it is my hope and sincere hope that we are also going to be creating a very transparent system of DSS so that we don't deduct farmers' money with so many other unexplained deductions. Mr. Speaker, I seek for an opportunity to bring a few amendments to this bill. In as much as I am supporting it, there are areas I feel that we need to put amendments so that we align ourselves with the activities of the farmer. Mr. Speaker, I still do not understand why Coffee Board of Kenya has to be domiciled in Nairobi, yet all the farmers who practice coffee farming are not in Nairobi. Why can't the main headquarters of Coffee Board of Kenya be domiciled in Meru, in Nyeri, in Trans Nzoia, in Baringo, where we also have coffee? Why must we bring Coffee Board of Kenya offices in Nairobi, yet the farmers are in the villages? Let us be considerate that coffee is a rural crop. And you don't have to bring the headquarters of Coffee Board in Nairobi for you to be seen to be working. So I promise to bring an amendment because I feel we punish our farmers through the logistics of coming to Nairobi when they don't have to. Mr. Speaker, I also don't understand why coffee as a sector, as a subsector, has to be subjected to the bureaucracies of 4 ministries. For you to be able to achieve anything in the coffee subsector, coffee is under trade, it is under Ministry of Cooperative, Ministry of Agriculture, and Treasury. And by the way, also county government is involved. So whenever farmers, coffee farmers want something, they have to be staggered in all those 4 ministries for them to be able to achieve anything. Why can't we domicile coffee in one ministry? Why can't we say every other activity of coffee is under one ministry called Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Cooperative? And final, these bureaucracies, Mr. Speaker, create a lot of delays. Nothing moves. Bureaucracies after bureaucracies. So I'll bring an amendment, I hope I will succeed, so that we can streamline the functionality of this subsector. Mr. Speaker, last but not last, there is a clause that indicates that for any farmer to cut down a coffee tree, you must get authorization from the county government through the county executive minister. That, to me, is very oppressive. Why must you force a farmer to go and line up in the county government offices if they want to uproot their coffee and plant a new breed? Currently, I'm a coffee farmer. I am already uprooting my old trees to put the new variety because the weather has changed. Do I have to go to the county executive minister of Kiambu County for me to uproot my coffee? This is punitive. And we must not go through that route. So I will put amendment, I hope I will succeed, so that I can be able to streamline that idea. Mr. Speaker, finally, I cannot keep quiet when we are introducing levies after levies in the coffee sector. It is good that we have brought back the CRF, Coffee Research Institute. It is good that we have brought back Coffee Board of Kenya. It is good that we have introduced county government as a key player. But already the county government are taxing farmers through licensing the pulping centers. If the farmer is already paying a levy for a pumping center to be licensed, why does that farmer has to pay another levy when they sell their coffee? This is double taxation, and it will not happen. So I will still and urge this House to allow us to make amendments so that farmers do not pay double levies in their value chain of coffee. I am excited that after many political games and dances that have been going around the coffee sector, finally this coffee bill, Senate bill of number 10, has seen the light of day. We are debating this bill, and I am hopeful that the coffee farmers are finally going to get the value for the energy they put in the coffee sector. And before I conclude, Mr. Speaker, coffee is a serious crop in this country that brings a lot of revenue in Kenya. By the way, coffee sector is supposed to be a ministry by its own, based on the amount of money coffee generates in this country. I still don't understand why we play politics with coffee. I still don't understand why we feel like we are over favoring coffee farmers. That the money that we have allocated in this House as coffee revolving advanced cherry fund can be reallocated by one public officer without seeking for clearance from this House or clearing or getting opinion from the farmers, and write a letter expressly reallocating coffee monies to other sectors. Whereas I don't have a problem with other people receiving money, coffee money must be respected, and coffee farmers must be respected. Anybody trying to play around with coffee farmers' money must be told and be reminded. It is the coffee sector that brought the development you see in some of these White Highlands areas you see of Kericho, areas of Baringo, areas of Nyeri, areas of Kiambu, and we cannot take farmers, coffee farmers for granted anymore. And therefore we are still requesting and waiting for the permanent secretary in charge of cooperative to tell us that letter that is circulating around, showing and indicating that he intended to divert 1.5 billion shillings, money meant for coffee farmers, to other sectors without clearance of this House. Who gave it?
Yes, the Honorable Mutunga, what's your point of order?
Honorable Speaker, I'm wondering whether the member is in order to tag along the name and the docket of the PS cooperatives here. And he has no opportunity to defend himself. Honorable Speaker, ministries have the authority to manage their resources as per the guidelines given to them and the PFM Act. So why is this thing being dragged along here? Honorable Speaker, is that in order?
Order, Honorable Mutunga. The Honorable Lady has the absolute right to question the institution of the permanent secretary. She did not name names, but that is an office. And if she has her own issues with that, she has the right to bring up that on the floor of the House. Regardless of whether that is going to directly affect the minister himself, the cabinet secretary, or the PS, or any other minister, any other person who works in the ministry. The honorable, order, this is, we are past that. The Honorable Maina Madenge. Order, Honorable Mutunga. Order, Honorable Mutunga.
Honorable Speaker, I stand to support this motion.
Proceed, Madenge.
Honorable Speaker, today is a great day for coffee farmers. Now that this bill is being debated in this House, and it will no longer be used on the rooftops of vehicles by politics and politicians who are trying to drive a certain narrative in the Mount Kenya region where coffee is mainly grown. There have been accusations that the majority leader in this House being falsely and unfairly accused of frustrating a bill that had not even gotten to the floor of this House. While senior members who have been here long enough know the procedure of Parliament and the way bills are processed. So today, I'm a happy member of this House and also a happy chair of the Parliamentary Coffee Caucus. Honorable Speaker, the regeneration of the Kenya coffee industry has come at a time of great challenges. The coffee growing areas and land has shrunk tremendously. The production per tree has gone down. Farmers have been pushed at the periphery of the coffee trade. This bill brings back farmers as major players in the trading of the coffee commodity. Honorable Speaker, the coming back of the reestablishment of the Coffee Research Institute at a time when farmers are faced with the effects of climate change, the effects of new diseases and pesticides, and declining production, the need to regenerate the aging coffee bushes could not have come at a better time. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I allowed this bill for bringing back the Coffee Research Institute. However, Honorable Speaker, I still feel that in the same way we fund research at Kemri, in the same way we fund research at Karo, the coffee farmer, because this is a key crop for this country, a key foreign exchange earner, the coffee farmer must also be supported by the exchequer in reviving the research which has been largely dormant for over 10 years. Honorable Speaker, a number of regulators are still active in the coffee value chain, from county governments, the Capital Markets Authority, and the board. It is important for, especially in the coffee trade at the Nairobi Coffee Auction and the Nairobi Coffee Exchange, which is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority, that there is simplicity, clarity, and speed in resolving issues that have either been raised by traders or by the authority itself. Honorable Speaker, it is not possible and tenable in this era of accountability and transparency for the Capital Markets Authority to raise a question to be responded for by a coffee broker give them 7 days to respond, yet sit on the same communication in resolving it for more than 21 days. That is being an impediment to coffee trade. Honorable Speaker, the best prices by our coffee farmers are fetched through direct sales. Direct sales must be allowed to thrive and not frustrated in this country. That is where our farmers are able to get better prices over and above the prices at the auction. Direct sales must be allowed to complement the sales at the Nairobi Coffee Exchange, and therefore the clarity to the route to the market for direct sales, clarity for settlement, and speedy resolution, and the number of bureaucracies and the number of offices required lying in between the conclusion and the agreement of the price and the export of the commodity by the buyer must be streamlined and simplified. In fact, ideally, we should see in this law direct sales having a one-stop shop. Honorable Speaker, the coffee farmer during his heydays had the Kenya Planters Cooperative Union. Those assets were mismanaged. And even the coming back of the coffee board, we must ensure that the membership of the board does not also run into the same problems that new KPCU ran. New KPCU today is a parastatal, and the question of how this parastatal will continue to operate alongside the coffee board needs to be clarified. Honorable Speaker, the milling capacity in this country has been competing for very low volumes. And the area of milling has been used traditionally. Actually, the milling area had been the home and the den of cartels. Whereas the new reforms have disrupted the horizontal integration. Honorable Speaker, we cannot remove the old cartels and create a new dominant cartel to carry out the same roles that we were saying have caused suffering to the farmers. Honorable Speaker, it is not possible for millers and brokerage agents and brokerage firms to participate in direct trade, in direct sales, and therefore we must provide for punitive penalties for the players who violate the provisions of this law. Honorable Speaker, the question of financing production of coffee is central to the revival of the coffee business in this country. And therefore we must have clarity and predictable subsidy program for coffee farmers. This sector requires a rebirth, it requires to be revived, and we have to make deliberate steps to support the coffee farmer better. I want to congratulate the Kenya Kwanza government for continuation of the Sheriff Fund, but it is also important and paramount that we craft support for farm inputs and agronomy services. Extension services at the county governments have gone to the dogs. It is imperative that if we are reviving this sector, that the national government intervenes or provides clear guidelines for collaboration in providing, in supporting farmers with better agronomy services. Honorable Speaker, the most interesting part is the marketing and selling aspect. In this country, coffee sales and coffee purchase is dominated by about 6 large companies. Those large companies have crowded out any small players who would want to come and provide and offer competition. The Nairobi Coffee Exchange must deliberately open the route for the small players who will buy small volumes at premium prices to come and compete in that space. Alternatively, we must create a deliberate path for those small players to go directly to our wet mills and our cooperatives and purchase our coffee directly from our farmers. Honorable Speaker, I support.
The Honorable Member of Parliament for Kirinyaga and Jerry.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support this bill. Honorable Speaker, I stand here as a good example and a beneficiary of proceeds of coffee. My humble parents from Kirinyaga County used to farm or engage in coffee farming, and those are the proceeds that took me through school. Honorable Speaker, allow me to first recognize the meticulous work done by the Senate Committee on Agriculture, led by Honorable Kamau Murango, the Senator Kirinyaga County. Honorable Speaker, it goes without saying that for a long time, coffee farmers have not been getting their dues. Honorable Speaker, Kirinyaga County produces some of the best coffee famed for its aroma. Notably, Rungeto Factory from Geshogo constituency fetched Kenya shillings 1,715 per kg for their AA grade in the last year at the NCE. Honorable Speaker, despite the challenges that have been there in the coffee sector, this bill now seeks to address some of the pertinent issues so that coffee farmers can finally enjoy the proceeds of their work. It is worth noting, Honorable Speaker, that governance has been a major challenge in the coffee sector. As we discuss and debate the coffee bill, Honorable Speaker, 2023, it is also important to remember that we must also fast track as a House the cooperatives bill that will address most of the issues that occur in the governance sector of coffee. Honorable Speaker, recently in Kirinyaga County, we saw protests in various cooperatives, notably Kiberego Coffee Farmers Cooperative and Mutira Coffee Farmers Cooperative, due to governance issues that have denied farmers their dues and loopholes that are exploited to ensure that they do not get what is owed to them. Honorable Speaker, we must go an extra mile to ensure that as we push for direct sales, Honorable Speaker, so that coffee farmers can be able to market their coffee and sell it directly to any willing buyer, bypassing intermediaries that often manipulate market prices and take advantage of them, that we also address concerns that coffee cooperatives are facing at the county level in terms of infrastructure, Honorable Speaker, which is the duty of the county, Honorable Speaker. We must also address issues of farmhand inputs, Honorable Speaker. We know that we had a very robust fertilizer program, Honorable Speaker, but as I speak, farmers of Kiberegwe Coffee Cooperative Society, Honorable Speaker, do not have the necessary farmhand inputs to ensure that they are also able to grow the crop and maximize the output on their farms. Honorable Speaker, it is worth noting that Clause 47 introduces a levy, a purported levy to be paid to the county governments that is supposed to maintain the society factories infrastructure. However, Honorable Speaker, county governments have proven from time to time that even once they get these funds, they do not have the goodwill to ensure that the funds are applied and are not diverted. Currently, as I speak, county governments have what we call NAGRIP, that is supposed to facilitate agricultural infrastructure and also offer extension officers at the local level to support farmers so that they can increase their output. However, the same is never applied at the county level. So we must check some of the issues that have been raised or rather introduced by the coffee bill that will not address the challenges the farmers have been facing. Perhaps the national government can come to a common ground with the county government on what duties can be undertaken by national government and what the county governments have the capacity to do. Honorable Speaker, we must also streamline the sector in ensuring that farmers are not exploited merely because perhaps they are not able to read the many documents that are presented during the AGMs, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, any coffee farmer who has attended an AGM can tell you the tedious documentation, the hidden charges in terms of marketing, in terms of transport that is charged in dollars, whereas it is transport at the local level. And all these concerns, Honorable Speaker, the bureaucracy involved in it must be lessened so that the farmer is able to examine any documentation that is presented during the annual general meetings and be able to make even informed decisions when they are giving borrowing power to the societies, Honorable Speaker. In recent times, Honorable Speaker, we have seen protests by coffee farmers arising out of instances where borrowing power has been abused by the societies or the cooperatives, Honorable Speaker, where there has been conflict of interest, where some board members also sit in some unscrupulous circles and they borrow money purporting to have borrowing authority from the coffee farmers who do not understand the documentation and the hefty documents that are provided during AGMs, Honorable Speaker. And then, mysteriously, the circles collapse. Honorable Speaker, these pertinent issues, if they're not addressed, even if we have robust law allowing farmers to have direct sale, yet governance issues are not addressed, coffee farmers will continue to suffer. Honorable Speaker, my colleague, the member for Manyata constituency, who's a chairperson KYPA, and I will be proposing some of these amendments to address governance issues and ensure that farmers get what is due to them. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Melly. Proceed, Honorable Melly. Give me the mic.
I lost my card, so I don't know.
Yeah, you have the mic next to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want first of all to commend the Committee of Agriculture, led by the member, Dr. Mutunga, for really bringing this bill, which it is long overdue. This is the bill that, Honorable Speaker, the Committee of Agriculture of the 12th Parliament, we did deliberate and move around the country to really make sure that the coffee farmer in this country is really gets his dues. Honorable Speaker, as we discuss this bill, I want to say that coffee farmers in this country, or coffee farming, supports almost 1 million households, smallholder. It is the crop that has been called in Kenya the black gold of the 80s. It is because of that in the 80s and most parts of the 90s, Mr. Speaker, coffee was actually a top crop in this country. But due to mismanagement and the competition in the global market, coffee has actually gone down. But I want to thank the committee because this bill seeks to resuscitate the coffee sector. Among the issues that are actually here, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that this bill seeks to look into, among other things, one, to bring in the coffee board. Honorable Speaker, AFA through the Crop Act of 2011, has decided to lump all major crops under one particular act: sugar, tea, and coffee. And therefore, it lacked the attention that it deserved. This bill is actually trying to tell the government and the players in the industry that coffee is a major crop and the government needs to have very good attention to it, and more importantly, to the farmers. This bill, in clauses 4 to 22, seeks to establish the Coffee Board of Kenya. And this Coffee Board, under the CEO and under the board, has a number of issues that are supposed to assist farmers. One of it is the Coffee Fund. One of it is the Coffee Cherry Development Fund, which every time during picking of the crop, and I want to tell this house that coffee is a labor-intensive crop, which needs a lot of laborers during picking, mostly. And if the farmers do not get money that time, the crop goes to waste. And this bill has tried to address that, and more importantly, to also make sure that coffee has its own chapter, has its own place in the agriculture sector. Honorable Speaker, in clauses 22 to 25, the bill tries to bring in the local coffee laws to ensure that issues of licensing of the various coffee processing plants or cherry plants. In my constituency, Honorable Speaker, Tindred has over 30 coffee processing small factories. And every other time, because of lack of the relevant laws, at times these farmers go through a lot of problems. In fact, by making sure that the county government plays a pivotal role in licensing, so that these particular issues of coffee plantation, coffee licensing for the establishment of coffee factories, the county government comes into play. And more importantly, we need to have closer agricultural extension officers to ensure that we have quality management. On regulatory provisions, Mr. Speaker, the bill from clauses 26 to 35 actually looks at the production, registration of various operators, growers, millers, roasters, processing, licensing, and reporting. Honorable Speaker, it is in this bill that, as it has come to this House, there are actually a number of conflicts that I'm proposing as a member or as a grower or a farmer, to ensure that we have no conflict of interest between the farmer, a grower, a processor, and even a roaster. So that every other process of coffee, the interests are actually catered for, more importantly of the farmer. The farmer is the main player in this. So by actually lumping them together, you'll realize that some marketers, some growers, some roasters, and even some marketers will always benefit more than the farmer. Who takes the lion's share? He has all the time to wait for the crop in the field. He has all the time to take through the processing, and is the one who carries the burden of payment. So in this particular case, I'll be proposing a number of amendments to ensure that the role of a farmer, and more importantly, the smallholder, is really put into consideration. On the production and processing, Honorable Speaker, on clauses 39 to 48, it governs the production, material imports, coffee, and certification, and traceability, and forms of various disclosure to authorities. Honorable Speaker, this country, we have what we call specialty crops. It is in this clause that we really need to look into as a House, and I want to urge honorable members who are within the House, and more importantly from coffee growing areas, that we really guard the quality of coffee. Coffee from the Eastern Highlands and Western Highlands, where I come from, are of very high standards, are of very high quality. At times we allow unscrupulous individuals to export our coffee or to import to mix our coffee with other less quality coffee, and therefore to make our coffee don't look of high quality in the national market. These clauses 39 to 45 tries to look at how do we make sure that the production of coffee, the materials that we use, especially on the imports and certification, and we make sure that we can be able to trace every coffee that we produce from the market and from Kenya to even the international community, it will be very good. Honorable Speaker, I also want to say that the establishment of the DSS, direct sales settlement, is going to give a lot of money to farmers. One of the things that has really given cooperative societies, more so in my constituency and in those parts of the North Rift, is that farmers sell their crop and they wait forever to get money. This is actually affecting most of the societies. And by direct sales, I want to say that the farmer will immediately the sales are done, the payment is digitized or is in digital. You can be able to access your money almost instantly. So in this, it will now allow farmers not to wait forever. In fact, a number of crop farmers, I included, at times sell our crop and waited for up to 1 month. Where is that money? Yet already the money was paid about a month ago. It is lying somewhere to give interest and profits to the middlemen, the marketers and the others. Honorable Speaker, on quality assurance, clauses 60 to 62 tries to ensure that compliance with quality standards and various levels of production and inspections and controls. And this one, Honorable Speaker, I want to say this, especially during the crop development, crop husbandry, the issues of fertilization, the issue of crop husbandry, the issue of taking care of the crop during the cherry and even the roasting stage. All those are very important, especially because coffee is a very sensitive crop. It is so sensitive that all the quality assurance and standards measures make sure that we produce the best. In fact, if we are going to take care, most of our farmers are going to have a production per tree of even up to 10 kilos. In fact, at times, many farmers would do very large scale, about 2 acres, and yet they don't get that particular amount of money. On coffee research, let me say this. Coffee has been domiciled at KALRO, and KALRO has a lot of agricultural related activities. I want to say that it is important that we bring coffee to have Coffee Research Institute. We are actually saying that we have a Coffee Research Institute in Koru, we have a Coffee Research Institute in Ruiru. We want to establish as many coffee research institutes, even in coffee growing counties, so that the accessibility and the new knowledge and the new idea on crop development reaches the farmer faster. KALRO has actually had so many broad-based activities. Honorable Speaker, on financial provisions, let me just say this, that cooperative societies, and I want to ask that let the cooperative societies not be allowed, especially directors, to be just picking loans anyhow and actually subjecting their societies into debt. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that I shall be proposing a number of amendments on this, more specifically on how the cooperative societies are going to be managed, and more importantly, to stop the directors from taking loans. Thank you.
The Honorable Murugara, followed by the Honorable MP for Kwanza.
Good. Thank you. Manyata. Murugara is from
Murugara.
Tharaka. Thank you. Thank you very much,
The
Mr.
chair
Speaker.
of JLAC, an MP for Tharaka.
Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to also voice some support for this bill. It's a Senate bill. I must start by saying so. But it's a bill that is actually well done. It has undergone public participation. And I confirm this because I have heard from the farmers making inquiries through all fora what has happened to their bill, the coffee bill, on which they had public participation. This is unlike the Ndengu bill, which I've just opposed purely because it was not taken to the farmers for them to put in their input so that they are able to get a law which they actually understand. Coffee is one of the most important cash crops in the country. It is actually not grown much in the Tharaka constituency, but it is grown extensively in Chuka and Manyora, which are my neighboring constituencies, Chuka Igamba-Ng'ombe, and specifically Chuka area, which are neighboring to Tharaka. And therefore this bill will also be of great benefit to my county of Tharaka Nithi. Since coffee was introduced in the country in 1902, it actually did very well. Quickly, the economy of the young colony and then protectorate was changed because coffee was massively grown. It was later rivaled by sisal, but again, it overtook sisal. Areas where coffee was grown became bread baskets of the country, and this is one reason today those areas are more developed than the areas where coffee was not being grown. Africans were not allowed to grow coffee until towards independence, when the likes of Chief Koinange and the others were allowed to do so. But after independence, and we had a law, the Coffee Act, which was in place that time, then quickly the crop gained popularity, and in the 70s, it was the mainstay of the country. It was overtaken by tea later, but again, we want to restore coffee to where it used to be, so that not only is it a major foreign exchange earner for the country, it is also one of the crops that give farmers the best of the income for their livelihoods. This new law is very important because it handles the three major areas of coffee growing, starting with crop husbandry, research, and growing or germinating of the crop. And here is important for us to emphasize that in the 70s and 80s, the Ruiro Coffee Research Institute, I think it was called a foundation then, was extremely pivotal in getting the best breeds or the best brands or crops of coffee grown in the country. Soon after that, we just got it wrong as a country, and coffee went to the dogs. In fact, farmers started uprooting the crop, a very undesirable development that happened. We are happy to note today, whether through the new KPCU and the Coffee Board of Kenya, the crop is getting back to its roots. We must also work on marketing, because that is where the problem came in. We started having cooperatives which did not give a damn to what sort of crop was grown, provided the little that they could collect was marketed, and they would pay for the money and not care about the farmers. Today, we must ensure that the farmer gets value for the crop produced and taken to the market. And we cannot say this without any more emphasis than we are doing now. There has been an issue raised as to why coffee transcends 4 ministries. And this, we must admit, because this is our country, brings in the issue of bureaucracy when decisions have to be made regarding the crop. The parent ministry is the Ministry of Agriculture. This is the one that has to deal with the crop production, husbandry, and harvesting of the crop before it is taken to the market. Then it comes in the Ministry of Cooperatives, because most of the crop is grown under cooperative societies. We know very well it's one ministry that must be streamlined. It is not as efficient as it should, and the new CS must move in to make it even better than it is. After that, it moves to the Ministry of Trade, because we have to market it abroad. We have to take it to the countries where it is consumed, and we are paid for it. Again here, we must streamline, not in the likes of the way we market our manufactured products. This is a crop, it belongs to a farmer. It doesn't belong to an industry. And therefore, the way it is treated by the Minister of Trade and Development must be peculiar as the other crops are done. We have the Minister of Finance, which I believe is where monies would come into the country through, and the disbursement would have to be done. And again here, we have to be efficient. The farmers have to be given their money in a timely manner. The reason why coffee collapsed is because, number one, the prices were mundane. The prices were so poor that no farmer would even want to weed for the crop or even harvest it. Number two, when the funds came in, the cooperatives would always take the lion's share. And this is what we are trying to get away from. And after that, then we would have immense debts, indebtedness by the societies, which of late, the Ministry of Cooperatives has had to move around the country to try and have those debts waived. We do not want to get into this. This is why Senate has brought this bill. Sorry, this is why the leader of majority has brought in this bill. And as such, we have to support the bill for the benefit of our farmers. So with those very many remarks, I beg to support this bill. I will also support the amendments proposed by those who come from the coffee growing areas, because they are the paramount stakeholders in this. Good amendments have to be supported so that we make this bill as good as it can be. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do support.
But can you hear me first?
Mheshimiwa Wanyonyi, have you?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable
I've been
members,
waiting the whole afternoon to talk about this bill.
You,
And,
honorable members, can I order honorable members? I want to bring to your attention that we'll have an adjournment motion at exactly 5:30.
I can't hear.
And I want to bring to the attention of all members that we'll have an adjournment motion at exactly 5:30, which is exactly 10 minutes away. So if you take less time, then you'll allow, because this motion has got a lot of interest, this bill, will allow more members also to weigh in on that. Proceed, Honorable MP for Kwanza.
I shouldn't be the last one.
Proceed.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity. And I want to draw the attention of the Kenyans that the coffee is actually, from the time it was introduced in this country, almost a century ago, it was referred to as gold. It's actually gold in Kenya because black gold. And most farmers were involved. And I remember when I was a small baby, we had a lot of coffee plantation. And Mr. Speaker, as mentioned by other people, coffee was wide in areas, particularly in my area of those sides of Bungoma. Why are you cutting my?
Let's proceed.
What happened? This is a frustration, actually, confusing. I was making a contribution, Mr. Speaker, but actually coffee was referred to as black gold because it was black gold at that time. And as mentioned by the proposer of this bill, and I think it was mentioned by my chairman of agriculture, Kenya was actually the second to Ethiopia in terms of exportation and growing of coffee in this country, because we actually refer to it as black gold in our own area. It's because, of course, looking at the requirement for the growing of coffee, Mr. Speaker, coffee, we have a very good soil, particularly slopes of Mount Kenya, slopes of Mount Algon, where I come from. We actually are planting a lot of coffee because of the soil and the climatic condition at that time. So the question here is, the challenges that actually have been mentioned is our own creation, our own failure. We should actually look at it very critically, and I've been talking to my chairman of the Agriculture Committee. As we proceed, we want to revert coffee so that it becomes black gold as actually was perceived that time. Because, first of all, we were actually beating Ethiopia. Ethiopia and Uganda. Uganda was number 3. We were number 2 to Ethiopia because, of course, of the topography in Ethiopia. So they were growing a lot of coffee there. But we actually failed ourselves. One, we had the extension officers, Mr. Speaker. The extension officers were helping farmers to actually assist in production of this particular coal. And of course, as you know, we were then exporting after processing, but today, our own failure has been, we are now actually exporting raw material in the raw form, other than actually, even those factories that were there, the small factories were there that were processing coffee at that time, are no longer there. And I want to find out exactly what happened. So that's why the Committee of Agriculture and the chairman is here. We are going to ask the Minister of Agriculture to see how can be able to revive those small factories that were processing the coffee before actually were exported. And of course, we are earning a lot of foreign exchange. And this country was really, as a reminder, was really respected because it was actually coffee exporting country in Africa, apart from Ethiopia. Therefore, I think we should be able to do, one is that be able to get the research institutions, the research centers actually revitalized to be able to actually start continuing with the research of coffee, and we get various varieties, because at the end of the day today, people are very, with the technology that actually is there today, Mr. Speaker, people want to know what variety are you actually producing. You go to some other countries and you ask what you want to take, you want to get tea, they ask you what kind of tea. Say, I want an African tea. You get very good tea because it's actually exported. If you want African coffee out there, it's very well processed, and therefore, again, this is something that we have to ask the research. And I think AFA was coming up with those research. Now today, we are now removing coffee from AFA so that it's on its own. We have the coffee board of Kenya, which again, I don't know. You ask me, I don't know what went wrong with the coffee board of Kenya. But it actually went into AFA because of the marketing part of it. So, Mr. Speaker, we actually have to go back and see where the rains are beating us. And last year, not least, I wanted to make sure that we have this exchange of services, which of course, as we are saying, we are reviving the research areas, we are reviving, somebody mentioned earlier, I think one of the speakers from the very beginning, that you should have centers in areas that are growing coffee, other than coming all the way to Nairobi. If you have an issue, you have to come all the way to Nairobi, which is not right. Let's have some of these things localized so I can be able to see if there's any problem for a particular farmer. The farmers are actually willing to. And of course, if you have planted coffee, like I have got coffee in my area in Tanzania, which was one of the biggest areas that were growing coffee that time, because the white settlers actually settled there and were growing coffee in those areas. You can also plant. Apart from planting it, you can also have intercropping of the whatever product you want, the maize, wheat, whatever, even sunflowers. And therefore, I want us to take this very seriously. And the chairman, you are here, chairman of agriculture, let's get people who are supposed to revive this coffee sector for the benefit of our country. With those few remarks, I know you are looking at me, you are looking at, I want to take this opportunity to support this, and I will be among those that are going to come up with a new proposal to be able to go back to where we were, because it's just carelessness that the coffee sector today is no more. I support this bill.
The Honorable Mogaka, MP for West Mugirango, you have exactly 2 minutes.
Mike. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I must thank the Committee for Agriculture for making this bold initiative to make the 13th Parliament the savior of the coffee farmer in this republic. I allowed the introduction of this bill, and I support the committee's report, and I will also be on my toes proposing very progressive amendments that are going to make our coffee farmers have their smile back on their faces. And as I say this, Mr. Speaker, when we were growing up as children, indeed, coffee was gold. It will be a disaster when we are adults and in leadership that now coffee turns out to be a disaster. I want to urge this parliament to rise to the occasion and make Kenya a great coffee producer, a great coffee exporter, and a great foreign exchange earner as it was before. Mr. Speaker, my constituency, West Mogrango, it was one of and still is one of the largest coffee producers, but majority of the coffee bushes are abandoned because farmers have been driven out of the farm because of the mismanagement, the squander, and the pilferage that goes on in the coffee sector. This bill seeks to introduce systems that are foolproof, that are farmer-centric, that are going to assure that every farmer will get value for their farm for their farm work. And I want to urge and take this platform to ask my people of West Mogrango that if there is a time we need to revive our coffee sector, if there is a time we need to get back to the coffee farms, if there is a time we need to make money out of this coffee, the time is now. And as their member of parliament, I will be in the front line of making sure that we liberate them, we empower them, we ensure that coffee farmers get value for their money. I support.
It's exactly 5:30. By the time we reconvene again on this bill, the Honorable Mogaka will have an additional 8 minutes. And if he is going to be in the House, he will be followed by the MP for Manyata. Order, honorable members. Next order. The Honorable Gachimu, I see you, and I would gladly give you an opportunity for you to contribute. You must take note that the chair is one of the founder members of the Coffee and Tea Parliamentary Association in this parliament, in the 7th parliament. So coffee is something that is very close to my heart. So I know you, how much you are committed to it. But the Honorable, next order, let's continue now. The Honorable Mbui, you have an adjournment motion. We have an adjournment motion. You have 10 minutes yourself. You'll not have a seconder. And every other member will have only 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. A definite matter of urgent national importance regarding the implementation of the CBC student transition. First, I want to thank the Speaker for allowing this motion and also the House for supporting it so that we can be able to address this motion. Now, Honorable Speaker, as enactment of the competence-based curriculum continues, the Pioneer CBC class is expected to transition to grade 9, commencing in January 2025. However, this transition has caused increased apprehension among parents and widespread concern on the preparedness of the education sector with regard to the transition. Of importance in this matter is, of course, infrastructure, which was initially, Mr. Speaker, meant to be lodged within secondary schools, but then when the new regime came into office, His Excellency the President came up with a presidential working party on education reforms, which recommended that this transition remain in primary schools. So junior secondary schools are domiciled in primary schools. Now, additionally, the practicality of putting up classrooms and other facilities like laboratories by December 2024, before the start of grade 9 lessons in January 2025, is in doubt. So at present, the transition is also marred with the issue of a shortage of junior secondary teachers, crucial for the success of this program. Now, Mr. Speaker, it's against this background that I want to encourage the House to discuss this matter with a view to exploring possible solutions and advise the key players, stakeholders, and the country at large on what we need to do within the period that is still remaining before these children end up in that position. Mr. Speaker, I want to point out first that the grade 8, which is going to grade 9 next year, are the pioneer in CBC. And Mr. Speaker, if you remember, these children, when they came from grade 6 to grade 7, they did an entry exam. And Mr. Speaker, all schools were not entitled to carry out CBC. So these children, some of them had to travel for many kilometers because what the Ministry of Education did is that it collapsed. A few schools were allowed to provide junior secondary while others were not. In my own constituency, Mr. Speaker, there was almost up to 5-6 schools that were feeding into one school. So what was happening, Mr. Speaker, is that there was serious congestion. And this is what we are worried about. This is what we want to make sure that we don't fall into, we don't want to fall into that trap. Mr. Speaker, this is the facts of this matter. That in January 2025, we will see almost 1.5 million students that are in grade 8 transitioning into grade 9 in over 32,000 primary schools in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, that is only 3.5 months away from now. Is the Ministry of Education prepared for that transition? That is the matter, and that is the reason why I have thought that it is important for this House to discuss this matter. What do we require, Mr. Speaker? We require 32,469 classrooms. And that is only on the assumption that every one of the schools requires only one class. There are schools with 5 streams, with 3 streams, with 4 streams. So we are probably requiring almost 60,000 classrooms. Mr. Speaker, do we have the classes? And if we don't, what are we going to do so that we can have them in the next 3.5 months? Mr. Speaker, we also require, because this system requires laboratories. It is no longer just the normal schools. We require to have laboratories put up so that they can be able to carry out some of these subjects like integrated science, health education, pre-technical, there's things like agriculture, there's things like home science. Mr. Speaker, all these require a laboratory. And Mr. Speaker, there is a possibility that even one lab in a school might not even be enough. But then the minimum one lab means that we require 32,469 labs in Kenya in the next 3.5 months. Mr. Speaker, are we prepared? Mr. Speaker, we also require teachers. And the teacher issue, Mr. Speaker, is one of the most notorious problems that we have. We have talked about free education for a long time. Even primary schools, we say we have free primary education. But you go to most schools, you find there are not enough teachers. So the parents have, on a regular basis, got to contribute to pay for teachers. Now, when parents are paying for teachers, how then do we call that free education? Because education is basically tuition, which is the payment for teachers to be able to provide the service. So the minute parents are paying teachers, it means that that education is not free. Even free secondary education, Mr. Speaker, we don't have enough teachers. Now we have introduced junior secondary, we don't have enough teachers. The problem of teachers is not just the numbers, Mr. Speaker. Even the competence of the teachers is also of concern. How many teachers are prepared in this country to be able to teach these subjects? Our graduate teachers, Mr. Speaker, they are taught to teach 2 subjects. Maybe English and literature, Kiswahili and CRE, geography and business. That is the kind of training that we have in our universities today. So who is going to teach integrated science, health education, pre-technical, sports, all these subjects, Mr. Speaker? And to compound it even further, the CBC, in the wisdom of the ministry, they have, instead of reducing the number of subjects, they have condensed the subjects and combined them. That means that there are subjects that are being taught and offered to be taught in our schools that have no trained teacher, not in Kenya, not in Africa, not in the world. There are some subjects that have been combined. There is no one technically capable of teaching those subjects. But every day, Mr. Speaker, the bell rings and someone walks into the class and teaches. What professional qualification do they have to teach these combined subjects that are putting together 3, 4, 5 different subjects that require different skills and different training? So, Mr. Speaker, we also have the challenge of teachers. So, Mr. Speaker, what do we need to do? I think, Mr. Speaker, today I would want to encourage that members try and offer solutions. And I have a few that I want to offer. Because I know, Mr. Speaker, that education is the future of this country. In fact, that is one of the reasons why the youngsters came here and wanted to take over the house. Mr. Speaker, because we must do things right, not just for the Gen Z, but even for the Gen Alpha and the ones that are yet to be born. We must make sure that we do things that are going to make this country competitive in the community of nations, so that our graduates from Kenya can be able to contribute in this world. So, Mr. Speaker, what solutions do I offer? First, let us expedite the release of funds. Mr. Speaker, as we sit here, there is even money of CDF of last financial year that has never been released. And members would have probably put up some of these classes. If the money is not released to members, or rather to the constituencies where members can go and oversight, then that means that we have a problem that is still growing. Mr. Speaker, there was also money that was supposed to be also allocated to the Ministry of Education that was supposed to be helping to put up the classes. That must be expedited. Any debts in the Education Ministry must be cleared immediately. Mr. Speaker, secondly, we must increase the budgetary allocation for the Ministry of Education for purposes of solving this problem. Mr. Speaker, this is an emergency. When we had COVID, we spent billions. Now we have MPOX a year, there's 6.5 billion supposed to be spent. We can spend any last cent of Kenyan money to solve this problem, because we don't want our children come January to be loitering the streets because there are no classes. I know the ministry is likely to create a situation or a solution. What they are likely to do is to combine classes. Standard 1 or grade 1 and grade 2 be put together. That means you are compromising quality of education. Or children are told to walk long distances to a school in the distance, somewhere far, where they probably have larger class sizes. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the solution is to provide money. And that money must come from the budget. Even if it means this House reallocates some money, we must look for money to be able to provide a solution to this problem. Mr. Speaker, I want to just advise the ministry that every time someone is appointed to be minister or a new regime comes into place, you don't have to come up with a new education system. You know, in 2013, we were treated to an issue of laptops, that every child going to grade 1, standard 1 would have a laptop. Today, those children are in university. They never saw a laptop. After 2-3 years, they saw a tablet. Those tablets are not even there. They were bought 1 year, they are destroyed, there was no planning. This is a ministry that plans for the future. We must plan for education. We must make sure that we put our things right so that we can be able to provide solutions and to help the country.
The MP for Seme.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are in a crisis. And we are in a crisis because the Ministry of Education is characterized by lack of coherence in policy formulation and implementation. In the recent past, what have they done? They came with delocalization, they came with then localization, they came with 100% transition, then we have CBC, then we have university funding system. All these are not harmonized and do not feed into each other. And that is why we have the problem. So the first thing the ministry should do immediately is sit down and actually harmonize all these things. We wanted, actually the first thought was that we should have this JSS domiciled in secondary schools. Suddenly, and I do not know what informed that, they are now domiciled in primary schools. And with that, Mr. Speaker, there is the problem of infrastructure. Not only classrooms, but also labs or even workshops. We are not even clear today whether in JSS we should have laboratories or we should have workshops. But if you go with this issue of CBC, then you should be talking about workshops. Even that is not clear. The next thing they should do is be very clear what is needed in the technical aspect of JSS. Are we going to have workshops or are we going to have laboratories? And that should be stated. The next thing is human resource. Where are the teachers? Have they been trained? Then the content. The truth is, even up to now, there is no clear curriculum for JSS. Go and ask the teachers, they'll tell you there's no clear curriculum. And next year, we're having these kids moving. And even there's no clear schedule of teaching materials that should be used.
So in my mind, the first thing that we need to do, the ministry must sit down and harmonize these policies. But in terms of JSS, they must come out with clearly what are the structures we need, what is the funding that is required for that. I do not know whether the funds are, even if available, we can do it in 3 months, but that must be there. 2, the human resource. Now, when we get there, there may be space in secondary schools. Are we going to retool some teachers even in secondary schools to actually get these kids be taught next year? That is something we should look at. The content of what should be taught must be clear. We should be clear what is it, what is the curriculum. Ask the teachers what should be taught. It is not clear. The next thing, Mr. Speaker, is what are the teaching materials that should be there? You remember when these things started, people were talking of chicken being taken there to be slaughtered and things like that. When those jokes ended, we didn't end up with clear schedule of materials. So to me, Mr. Speaker, this is an emergency. And actually, they are used to putting up committees. They must now put up a committee to look at how this transition is going to take place, starting with the infrastructure, the funding of the same. Maybe that could be done. There is tooling of teachers that are available wherever they are, so that can be done. Having a clear curriculum. If they have some bits and pieces somewhere, they should put it together. And then the teaching materials that are required. So if that is done and funds are available, actually something should be done. Mr. Speaker, unless those things are done, I think we are going to have a crisis. But much more importantly, the ministry must start to have some coherence in its policy formulation and its policy implementation. Things that are being done off the cuff here and there, Mr. Speaker, is just going to ruin the education of our children. Mr. Speaker, that is my contribution to this.
The MP for Manyata, are you on this one or it's the old?
No, I will speak on it.
Okay, proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the Honorable Member for this very crucial and important motion. And Honorable Speaker, let me say that we shouldn't mince our words when we are describing the status of the education sector in this country. It is a crisis. And Honorable Speaker, whenever we have a crisis, we should always come together, offer solutions, and be able to see how we can handle it best. Honorable Speaker, the CBC program that came into this country a few years back has been one elephant that has not been able to actually take course as it was anticipated to do. And Honorable Speaker, outside the issue of infrastructure, we took in a system that was not meant for us, and it was not well structured in terms of implementation. But, Honorable Speaker, we are already in it. We need to look at how we can improve. And this draws me, Honorable Speaker, to the dream of Honorable Mwai Kibaki, the former president of this country, may so rest in peace. When he brought in the free primary education, his mind was to ensure that every single kid has a chance for education, especially the basic education. Honorable Speaker, after that, the sequential governments that have come in have not been able to improve and put resources so that the free primary education that Honorable Mwai Kibaki brought in could be the one that he dreamt about. And Honorable Speaker, there is a saying when we had a lot of problems in this country some times back, that the kids that were in the streets are actually the first products of the free primary education of Mwai Kibaki. But Honorable Speaker, now that we have the CBC, we need, Honorable Speaker, to actually have serious interrogation from the ministry, and they need to be called here to explain how to handle the required infrastructure that is needed urgently before January next year on the grade 9. And we need to hear whether they are ready, not only in a few parts of this country, but everywhere in this country, Honorable Speaker, where this program is ongoing. Honorable Speaker, it is obvious that even the teachers are not well prepared. So I would want to hear from the minister and the ministry on how it's going to do serious teachers training and ensure that teachers are prepared to handle grade 9. Because, Honorable Speaker, while we are releasing the pressure in the secondary schools because of the classes that are going to be empty, we are burdening our primary schools to a level where we are not able to work. We need to come together. NGCDF, the ministry, we need to put resources and urgent resources so that we can be able to actually evade a very serious crisis of having kids who don't have teachers to teach, who don't have places to go to class, and all that, Honorable Speaker. I would also like, Honorable Speaker, a formation of a committee to check on the sustainability of our education model, because, Honorable Speaker, in my opinion, and without a doubt, there is a problem with the sustainability and the expense required to continue with this project of CBC. Honorable Speaker, there is also an important role that is supposed to be done by a committee to ensure that no area in this country is left behind. And Honorable Speaker, we need to actually do an assessment, we need to do an audit to know whether we are able as a country to make the changes we are making in education. Honorable Speaker, our universities, public universities, do very well. Many of our kids, even of senior government officials, go to actually public universities. When
no, you've run out of time. Order. Is the Honorable Member for Samburu is there, Lekumantare? The Honorable Lekumantare, proceed. Oh, you've already exhausted your time. You only had 5 minutes, MP for Manyata. Proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this time. Mr. Speaker, I just want to add my voice to this discussion. And Mr. Speaker, the CBC, which is now in our system, is almost lacking everything, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, in fact, since we started this CBC, our children have been to those schools, but without the teachers. Mr. Speaker, CBC was meant to be a different school from our primary. And I remember when that committee decided to go to primary, they were to have even a different administration. But Mr. Speaker, the head teacher of a primary school heading again junior secondary. That is something that it has never happened, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this system requires a lot of practicals, but they lack materials. And I think, Mr. Speaker, the whole infrastructure in CBC is lacking. In fact, what they are still using is the balance of classrooms, that is from class 7 and 8, but we are seeing a problem. And Mr. Speaker, the members of parliament are talking from a knowledgeable point of view. because we do visit this institution. And Mr. Speaker, we entered a system that we are not ready and we are not prepared for it. And because we are there, Mr. Speaker, then the Ministry of Education should come in and provide what is required. Because I remember even when they were supposed to go to the high schools, I mean the secondary, they gave some classrooms which may be left in the secondary schools. So I think where we are, the students, Mr. Speaker, since CBC started, there is nothing much which is going on in junior schools. And you can imagine all those subjects to be taught. You can't take an English literature teacher to go and teach maybe in sciences areas. That is a problem, Mr. Speaker. And we have already affected our children. So I think this grade 9, something serious needs to be done, Mr. Speaker. And it is not the assumption of many people that the NGCDF will be able to provide the infrastructure. But Mr. Speaker, it is not enough. CDF is trying, but the ministry has a lot of funds which they really need to give to these institutions. Otherwise, come to next year, we'll have a lot of problems. Because right now, the primary school, where junior secondary school is, they have now a maximum. They have reached a maximum whereby there is no any other extra classroom. And we cannot wait until that time. So I think, Mr. Speaker, we really need to get the ministry so that they will provide the solution. What can we do before that time? Otherwise, thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a good move, and we are going to support.
The Honorable Phyllis Arto, is the MP for Moiben in the House? No, MP for Moiben is not in the House. The Honorable Nabi, followed by the Honorable Mutunga. Proceed. Nabi first, and then followed by the Honorable Mutunga. Nabi, Nabwera.
Yes, I'm here.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to add my voice on this noble motion this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, the CPC is facing a myriad of problems. Other than the lack of classes, lack of laboratories and resource centers, lack of teachers, enough teachers for grade 7, 8, and now we are going to have grade 9. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, mathematics, English, integrated science, and computer has almost nil teachers at grade 7, 8, and 9. A quick run in my constituency, which has 112 schools, primary schools, only 7 schools had postings of mathematics teachers. Mr. Speaker, the most difficult part of this CBC is that the teachers have pointed out to me that even the books developed by KICD for curriculum delivery, they are not in tandem with what is supposed to be. And in some of the books, the mistakes are just too much for them to use. They have resorted to using Google. Mr. Speaker, the biggest challenge we have with this system is that we have teachers, and because of the way we have configured TSC, teachers who could help, the P1 teachers who have capability that could have gone into grade 7, and grade 8 cannot move to teach. Mr. Speaker, I would like to make the following suggestions to help out. Mr. Speaker, the first thing we need to do for us to get enough classrooms in the next 3 months is for us to give a conditional grant to CDF of 21.6 billion. Mr. Speaker, even with the KPIL arrangement in a constituency where I have 112 schools, up to today, KPIL has only been able to do 12 schools, a classroom each. In Lumakanda Township, a school that requires 6 classrooms for grade 9, they have only been able to do 3. Mr. Speaker, the second solution to this problem is we must trigger the recruitment of 20,000 teachers to start on 1st of October, not in January. Because we have the budget, we provided the money for it in the budget, can we trigger the TSC to start recruiting by 1st of October so that by the end of December, we have these teachers on board? Mr. Speaker, are we aware that in this country we have emergency money? This is a matter that requires funds from the emergency kitty. And if we really care for our kids, if we really care for 3 generations we are about to lose, can we use the money from the emergency kitty to provide classrooms? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to also add my voice to this debate. Honourable Speaker, I start from the point of view that as a country, we are straining right now. We are straining economically because we are not able to meet our ends. Honourable Speaker, every Kenyan knows how we closed the financial year. Very many bills transited to this year, which means we actually do not have enough money. The other day I watched the CS Treasury speaking to Senate, and the kind of confessions that he made, that we really have to be very, very careful how we spend the little that we have. Honourable Speaker, we have an entire infrastructure laid out in secondary schools. And Honourable Speaker, these children are Kenyans. If we must take them through this experiment, then let us be realistic at least for once as a country. Let us realize that we have an entirely completed and tried out infrastructure at secondary school which they can immediately occupy. Treasury doesn't have to cough a single coin. We do not have to build other classes. Honourable Speaker, we are doing double development or double provision. We are going to invest in doing grade 9 classes for junior secondary school, and then we shall forfeit the Form 1 classes which are already there waiting for children. That is not logical, that is not reasonable. As a country which is training, we are making a huge mistake. We need to be realistic. Honourable Speaker, if it is the name, calling it junior secondary school, we can rename it. Let's set up another committee to come up with an appropriate name to call it transitory. That it is transiting from primary to secondary. It doesn't really matter. We are the ones who are inventing these names. Honourable Speaker, I am of serious opinion that we must continue with this experiment on our children. Let us be realistic for once as a country. Honourable Speaker, as you continue teaching children, the advancement of knowledge, increases. The need for investment in facilities, in elaborate laboratories, in reagents, in equipment, calls for, attention. And the problem we have right now is that all primary schools in this country, 99% of the primary schools in this country do not have elaborate laboratories. They do not have sufficient amount of reagents. In fact, these secondary schools do not have laboratories. We are struggling as members of parliament, trying to guide the CDF focuses on building laboratories for these secondary schools. So if we do not even have laboratories for these secondary schools, people are in Form 3, Form 4, and they're preparing for their exams. How can we be talking of establishing laboratories for our own new system that is actually being tried out? Honourable Speaker, if the infrastructure is already there, let us take the children there. Again, Honourable Speaker, we need elaborate libraries. We need libraries that will give these children sufficient material to be able to learn what it is. We have problems with some of the subjects like integrated science. Honourable Speaker, at secondary school level, you find a chemistry teacher, a biology teacher, a geography teacher. Teachers are there. We can cause this integration quickly by guiding them in terms of the principle. Who should be teaching what under the integrated curriculum? Honourable Speaker, let us be realistic as a country. So many of our children are going to be having a very difficult time at learning when without facilities, learning without proper books, and learning without well-trained teachers. It is another issue, Honourable Speaker. The grading system, exceeding our expectations, above expectations, below expectations. We know for sure when our children have to access universities in other countries, or when we have to get jobs in other countries, we are even taken through an examination to get to know whether we understand, and then we have universities that are proven, which have given us certificates. Honourable Speaker, in this particular system, and I question, are we really going forward or backward? Shall we really deliver Kenyans who are ready for that market or not? Honourable Speaker, I think we need a rethink as a country, and the task force that produced this and it was adopted, I think it needs to go back to the drawing board and ask themselves, did we actually do the right thing? Honourable Speaker, I do support.
The MP for Kasipul, followed by the MP for Gichugu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It is Kabondo Kasipul, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
And there is Kasipul constituency. For record.
Eva Obara.
Thank you.
Okay, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, this is not a laughing matter. And we need to say it as it is. Mr. Speaker, the questions that we asked ourselves is CBC facing challenges? And I'm saying that yes, a big one. And we actually look like we made a false start. Mr. Speaker, most of schools, I'm talking about my constituency, most of them are ill-prepared in terms of infrastructure. We don't have enough classrooms, we don't have laboratories, we don't have libraries for these JSS schools. Mr. Speaker, CDF has tried to build classrooms, but not enough. Not enough has been done. Mr. Speaker, the ministry has also done some work, and again, as I said, not enough has been done. Mr. Speaker, it is not realistically possible for the ministry or CDF to build laboratories in all these JSS schools. That is the reality. Mr. Speaker, the elephant in the room is a human resource. A teacher is ill-equipped. By being a science teacher or an arts teacher, they are forced to teach sciences as biology. They are assigned biology, assigned chemistry, which they did not, was not their subject in the university. Mr. Speaker, they are forced to read in the night and prepare for science subjects and come back and disseminate this to the students. Mr. Speaker, do you call this learning? No. Mr. Speaker, retooling has also not been done. So the teachers, as I've said, are ill-prepared, and I can tell you for free that they are a frustrated lot in the JSS classrooms. Mr. Speaker, the transition to grade 9 is another problem. We have 3 months to think through how these students are going to transit. Is it possible to build new classrooms for them? No. Within the time that is left, I don't think so. Is there enough money to give to the CDF to build the classrooms? I'm not sure. Maybe that can be answered by the chairman. Mr. Speaker, as I said, let us be realistic. What is the possibility of grade 9 being domiciled in the secondary school. Mr. Speaker, previous challenges of the age that we had is no longer an issue, because the last cohort of 844 are actually going to exit this year. And therefore, all the students who will be in secondary school will be of the CBC, program. Mr. Speaker, let's think outside the box. Grade 9, as they go to Form 1, if at all we agree to that, is that there will be an extra classroom because there will be no Form 1. So it will be at no expense. Mr. Speaker, will this be possible? Yes, I think it will. We will have laboratories, that will not be a problem. We will have subject teachers, that will not be a problem. The matter of the library will also be sorted. Mr. Speaker, do we need to push through what we know may not be humanly possible to do within the months that we have? Let's think outside the box. We are the ones, it is not cast on stones. We are the ones who made the policy, and we can review it and see how best our children can benefit on the education. Let us not waste the future generation of this country. Thank you.
The MP for Gichogo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity also to contribute into this motion of adjournment by Honorable Member for Kathiani, Honorable Robert Mbui. And I must thank him for taking the lead, because this is a matter that has also been lingering within most of the members of Parliament's minds. And it has also come at the right time before ushering in grade 9 next year. And there's a possibility of addressing the issues that have been raised if we bring our hands together as a Parliament, and also involving the executive, as we did in the matter of higher education funding under the leadership of the Right Honorable Speaker. I think this is a matter that also requires a kamukunji, so that the PS Department of Basic Education can be able to come and brief the House on the preparedness of this CBC before there's a lot of confusion. And I believe one of the reasons that members are concerned, and actually even the parents and the public generally, is that information dissemination from the ministry has been very limited. There is scarcity of information, and the Ministry of Education has roots up to the sublocational, up to sub-county levels. But the officers of the ministry, instead of disseminating this information across the schools to the parents, they have had a lot of laxity, and this information is not calculating down to the consumers. Honorable Speaker, I happen to have attended one of the sessions that had been sponsored where my children go to school, by the school, to bring a person from the ministry to come and explain the CBC thing. The way it was explained, I was able to understand, and it is a good thing. And the period for junior secondary is supposed to prepare these children for their competencies, in their areas of competencies, before they transfer to senior secondary school, so that if someone drops along the way and is not able to make to the university, you can make a livelihood through the competence that you've been able to be taken through that training. But however, this information is little known to many parents in this country. It is the high time that we task the relevant department to take up the role of dissemination of information to the consumers, who are mainly the parents, and the students to every school. I think they can be able to sponsor to sponsor and also get data of all the requirements for the CBC in each and every school. I know MGCDF, through the little resources, they are making efforts to build more schools and to be able to provide the relevant materials and equipment for this. But with little information, we will not be able to do much as we may be expected. Honorable Speaker, as I wind up, on the issues of infrastructure, I think for there to be equity for every child in this country, infrastructural money should not be disseminated or distributed through constituencies. They should be distributed through constituencies, but based on the actual need per constituency, not a general, a blanket figure which is funded to the constituency, because we have schools which do not require infrastructure, others require. Others require new classrooms, others require innovation. Honorable Speaker, I support.
The MP for Bumula, followed by the Honorable Mary, the Chair of the Education Committee, and the Honorable Ruku. Proceed in that order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to take this opportunity to thank my leader and my brother, Honorable Mbui, for bringing this indeed very important motion that affects our children, and that is our future. Honorable Speaker, we have a problem. I come from, I head a rural constituency that has about 110 schools. And out of all the schools, Honorable Speaker, the infrastructure to accommodate this program is lacking. It's not even at 5%, Honorable Speaker. I think the government must rethink its strategy. We need urgently to pull together resources, and for the interest of these children, Honorable Speaker, ensure that we finance these schools, and I propose through CDF, because there's a direct link to the ground, to ensure that we prepare ourselves for January. We've pulled together all the technical subjects and said we're going to have a resource center that is going to serve as a laboratory and all that. A modest resource center would cost about 2.5 million. We have 32,000 primary schools in this country. We are talking about 80 billion. This is something that must be dealt with as a matter of urgency, and if the government is serious, indeed, we must pursue this, Honorable Speaker. We have a situation where we have one teacher in a school teaching all subjects. Honorable Speaker, it is totally unacceptable. What are we preparing our children for? Can really they compete nationally and internationally, Honorable Speaker? They cannot. And some of these teachers were even not prepared to teach these subjects. And some of them, because it's a new curriculum, most of these teachers, if not all, they need retooling. They need refresher. They need to go back to school and be aligned to the new system, Honorable Speaker. We've had situations where these children are supposed to prepare for practical subjects. There are no practical materials, to work with. Even some of these teachers have never seen some of those materials that are supposed to use to engage these students. So you will find that at the end of the day, Honorable Speaker, the teacher does not understand CBC. The parent does not understand CBC. The government does not understand CBC and how it works. How then would you expect a student to understand CBC? Honorable Speaker, at the end of the day, the government must be serious. When we were growing up, and even now, when you go for any job interview, they will ask you for certification from KCPE to gauge whether you are qualified for that job or not. Now, we have students who are passing through a very critical stage of the schooling, going to another one. If this student were to go international, for instance, what will they use, Honorable Speaker? I mean, what would they use to say now this student has to go past very well than this one has to go to this university or not? We are setting a very dangerous precedence, Honorable Speaker. We have a situation whereby we have classes that are going to be vacant in Form 1. But we are really struggling to accommodate these students in primary school where we don't have classes. Why can't we have a linkage, Honorable Speaker, of how we can address this issue so that at the end of the day, the child, the student of Kenya does not suffer in the very hands of that government which must protect them. Thank you, and I support and thank Honorable
Meli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support Honorable Mbui on this petition. Mr. Speaker, the issue of CBC, I would just give a very short brief emanated out of a task force from Professor Thomas Odhiambo in 2012. In 2012, actually, the Odhiambo Commission was actually trying to align education with the new constitution. In so doing, it proposed a new education system, like the previous education systems. I think, Honorable Speaker, you remember that in 1964 we had the Ominda report. That brought education from a desegregated or a whites only and blacks only and the coloreds only education into one unified national education system, and stopped students from, and then all the students were actually treated as equal. Whites and Africans were taken as one. In 1976, we had the Kachad report on education objectives and manpower development. And in 1984, we had the McKay report, that is establishment of the 844 and the new university. Honorable Speaker, education system in any country is very dynamic. Education system in any country needs to come with issues that address the current happenings. Why the 844, which was introduced in grade 7 and it went to class 8 immediately, succeeded was because the then government of President Daniel Arap Moi did a lot of publicity. And I want to agree with honorable members that the problem we have in CBC is no one knows it. If you go to the villages, Honorable Speaker, ask mothers and parents of 70, 80 years, they will tell you about the days the chiefs talk about Karakana. They will tell you why the 844 was introduced. And I remember very well, they really understood it. The cattle dip attendants, the chiefs were able to explain it. Everybody in the marketplace will tell you what 844 is. Yet, there was the preparatory levels were very low compared to what we have today. In fact, we have invested huge resources in the CBC, but our biggest problem is actually the implementers. I want to report to this House that as the chair of education, we've taken this a lot. And I want to ask the members who are here, and you've really explained it very well, that one, the Ministry of Education started CBC in preschool, in grade 1, in PP1 and PP2. 10 years down the line, yet they did not get out through publicity, talk to the parents. This is a very good education system. It is actually on competency-based. That the child is taught what, we are differently endowed. Based on the competencies of the child, one, if you are a science-based, for example, or if you like sports, or if you like music, or if you like the sciences, these are things that we are encouraging parents and everyone else to go through. If you look at us who are here today, a number of professors or a number of leaders in this school were taken through very difficult mathematical questions. Yet that is not their field. They were told to do physics, chemistry, and biology. Yet they are arts-based, yet they are social science-based. So this particular problem, Honorable Speaker, is a problem that we are getting it as a result of poor publicity. Two, there is a lot of investment that the Ministry of Education has done in preparation. And I want to ask that you give me more time, Honorable Speaker, because it is an issue that we need to make the public know. That one, over the years, there has been training of teachers. That's what we call KPIL. There is what the Teacher Service Commission has been trying to do it. But the adequacy of the training is the issue. The stakeholders engagement, where we need Kenya National Union of Teachers, Kenya National Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, all the other stakeholders, the Parents Association, they need to be brought to the table and be explained to. Why are we saying that the students be domiciled in the primary schools? It is because of parental development. Honorable Speaker, the first education is the family. The reason why many of our children today in our societies are actually having developmental problems is they grow away from home, taking them into boarding schools. That's why we are telling the parent and the teacher, why we are telling the child to go and to show the parent the assignment, is so that they can have a parental engagement, the mother, the father, and therefore they have that developmental relationship. So that the father or the parent or the parents can know what new traits the child is developing and be able to nab it in the bud. That's why we are saying, let the child grow from grade 1 to grade 9 within the family settings. Two, Honorable Speaker, we had even indicated when the pilot was taking place that CBC let what we call activity rooms be created between grade 3 and grade 6. Activity rooms will enable the children to really participate in doing and in education, Honorable Speaker. What is very important for a child is the action and what they see. But the same issue has come up. These particular things have never been implemented. When it comes to grade 8, and I want to grade 7, 8, and 9, it was in this house that I moved funds from the Ministry of Education to the Constituency Development Fund. And I want to thank the Honorable Member because he has just said exactly what is happening, that there are no funds. We want to construct labs. We voted 3.4 billion shillings through CDF. Up to now, we are waiting. CDF owes constituencies about 10 billion shillings. They are nowhere. And you know, Honorable Speaker, 10 billion CDF, 95% of CDF money goes for educational institutions in this country. Now that we are preparing for grade 9, I think the ball is at the national government, at the national treasury. If they want this particular program to succeed very well, we really need the monies. Two, let the government officials leave the comfort of their offices and go to the field. Let everyone know, from the mamamboga, the teacher, the chief, the basics of CBC. Honorable Speaker, let me tell this House that if the basic tenets of CBC are well explained out, it will be very easy for everyone to embrace it. And I think the member for Gijugu does say it very well. It is the best education system, even in terms of the philosophy, even in terms of the structure, even in terms of why are we doing it at the primary school level. Two, right now the ministry is actually constructing about 11,000 classrooms. Unfortunately, they are not informing the members of parliament, who also have a program. They have money for CBC. The 11,000 classrooms are going on around the country as we speak, courtesy of the World Bank. How many members know that those programs are going on? Yet, they have their money, they need to explain to it. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, I want to ask the House that despite the challenges that we have on the CBC, it will be good. The CS will be here tomorrow, and even we can call a Kamukunji, and more so, we want to make sure that the ministry have what we call stakeholder engagement from the village level, from the school level, sub-county level to the county level. Let everyone, even through the matatus, even through the markets, through everywhere, be informed what CBC is. The teachers, I heard what the honorable members are saying. The subject teachers, the subjects that are taught in grade 7, 8, and 9, the ministry has undertaken a pilot on them. They have done the curriculum designs on them. What we used to call those days the syllabuses. They are ready, but we want the teachers to be taken through. We need a curriculum champion in every school, a CBC champion, who will be able to tell fellow teachers, what is it about when you talk about CBC, when you talk about pathways? What are we saying are pathways? When you say the sports, sciences, and social sciences, what are we actually intending to do? Why do we say exceeding expectations, below expectations, or they are met expectations? Because we are used to marks, Honorable Speaker. We are saying you have gotten grade C. That means you are an average. You have gotten grade A. You are. So when you exceed
yeah, you've taken given your
expectation, Mr. Speaker. What is the meaning of exceeding expectation? What is the meaning of not meeting expectations? Because we have to tell the public, where is it? So, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that let the ministry move up and we do it in a better way. Thank you, and I support.
Yeah, the Honorable Ruku, then followed by the Honorable Madam Phyllis Barto.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to start by thanking my brother, Honorable Boy, for bringing this motion. And Mr. Speaker, last year, I had a similar motion in this House, where we discussed CBC into details, and this House resolved quite a number of issues as far as CBC is concerned. Mr. Speaker, I feel very disappointed that the same matter is again on the floor of this House, whereas this House resolved a number of things. It means, therefore, Mr. Speaker, that what we resolve as a House is never taken seriously by the ministries responsible. And I think if it was possible, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education senior managers who are there, they need to be, I don't know whether prosecuted or fired or even put somewhere together in a public gallery where the public can come and punish them. Because our schools are in dire need. In my constituency, I have 100 primary schools and 48 secondary schools, Mr. Speaker. And all these schools are in terrible state. The money allocated through CDF is not enough to take care of the needs which each and every school need. Mr. Speaker, we went through in this House last year that there are a number of challenges which this system of education is facing. Curriculum development, Mr. Speaker. Curriculum development is a very serious issue which needs to be taken extremely serious by those who are responsible. Inadequate infrastructure, as Honorable Boye has indicated in this motion, we don't have proper infrastructure for our kids in our constituencies across the Republic of Kenya. Inadequate training, teachers training, as far as the CBC curriculum is concerned. Limited access to technology. One of the key goal of CBC is competency in technology, literacy in technology. How many schools in our constituencies we have these devices in our schools? Very few of them, Mr. Speaker. Lack of parental and community involvement, as the chairman of education has said. This is a curriculum system which requires proper involvement of parent and community. The Minister of Education has not taken this seriously. And we mentioned this last year. We debated this last year. But we have not seen the effort from the Ministry of Education involving the parent, involving the communities as far as the CBC curriculum is concerned. Overburdening the parent, Mr. Speaker, as you know, some of us are parents and our young daughters and sons are going through this system, and we know what it means as to run this curriculum system. And we ask ourselves, if some of us can feel the burden, what about the very poor in our villages, Mr. Speaker, the people we represent, those who are at the bottom of the pyramid? Mr. Speaker, this is something which the Ministry of Education needs to come up with, to think about it as quickly as possible. Also, Mr. Speaker, we said there is a way forward. Curriculum development to be taken seriously, teachers training to be taken seriously, and more teachers to be trained by TSC, running resources to be provided, monitoring and evaluation to be proper, involvement of the parent and the community to be done. And Mr. Speaker, we talked about legal framework, that there is no proper legal framework as far as the CBC implementation is concerned. We need to have an amendment of the Basic Education Act of 2012, Mr. Speaker, and I think some of us can take that matter, but it will move faster if the chairman of Education Committee can take it as an amendment of the committee. Access to assessment and evaluation, Mr. Speaker, to be done properly. Funding, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable, no, you have half a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, funding to be put in place. It is better, we even say we are not going to fund some sectors of our society, Mr. Speaker. Education, it pains the poor. And also the other thing which is paining the poor extremely hard is health in our community, Mr. Speaker. So we need universal funding as far as education is concerned, from primary to secondary to university. If it means there are some sectors which we are going to ensure they are not going to be funded, and we ensure education is going to be funded properly, and health is going to be funded properly, so be it, Mr. Speaker. Some of us are in this parliament because we went to school properly. Many dreams are cut short because students are not provided an opportunity to go to school. Very bright students, Mr. Speaker, who are in our villages, they are not able to access education because there's no funding of education properly. Mr. Speaker, I think government must take the issue of education seriously more than any other sector, must take the issue of health so seriously than any other sector. Those who are poor in our villages are in pain because of education and because of health, Mr. Speaker. I rest my case. Thank you. I support.
The MP for Moiben, followed by the MP for Central Imenti and the MP for Likuyani, in that order. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, there are two very important things in a country for it to be recognized internationally. One is the credibility of its passport. The second one is the credibility of the education system. If those two are wrong, I think everything becomes wrong. Mr. Speaker, when the CBC curriculum was conceptualized, it was supposed to cure some problems, societal problems. Mr. Speaker, competence-based curriculum is to enable a student to perform what they are taught in class, to go and function rightly in society. It had reached a stage where most of our graduates who were graduating from our institutions, particularly with the previous system of education, were not able to perform the functions which they were learning. So it was important to remodel the system so that it mirrors exactly what they are taught. And Mr. Speaker, any education system or any change must come up with challenges. And I think those are the challenges which are being manifested in this implementation of the CBC. Mr. Speaker, I think the most difficult problem which this system is facing is that there is a disconnect between the implementers and the policymakers. And the consumers of the policy. There is a disconnect between those people who sit in the ministry, those people who are in the high-rise buildings in the city, and those ones who are at the rural areas. There is no communication. Is it very difficult for the Ministry of Education to take this CBC and go to the grassroots and communicate with the people in the language that the people understand? If it is Kikuyu, let them even go to the level of translating and explaining to the common mwananchi what exactly this CBC is, to the parents, to the students. Let them translate, let them communicate in all the languages. We have people who can disseminate this information. Let us cascade it so that we read from the same page. Of course, we know that there are challenges when it comes to infrastructure. We don't have sufficient classrooms. We don't have enough teachers. We should start by looking at the interns, the 46,000 teachers who are supposed to be employed. Let those ones be employed as soon as possible. Let them be tooled. We have, they don't have to go to a classroom. The teachers don't need to be taken to a classroom like Parliament set up and be taught. We have digital platforms. Let the ministry utilize those digital platforms to retool those teachers as fast as possible so that our students, our children are not disadvantaged. Otherwise, if we don't move with speed, we will be compromising the standard of education for our children. And we do not want them to be turned away if they are to go and look for a job internationally. We want to be the best as before. Kenya has been known to have the best education system all over, all through. And I think in the world, Kenyans are among the most brilliant people in this world, and we don't want to compromise that component. Mr. Speaker, I think if we appropriate, Parliament appropriates resources, and I think going forward, we should be putting the bulk of money to education so that we have enough infrastructure, we have enough teachers. Let us not compromise at all costs. Let us have the systems in education running. Let the ministry, the staff who sit in the ministry headquarters relocate and activate the systems. Let us see the cabinet secretary in Central Province, in Coast Province, in Rift Valley, communicating this information, disseminating with the team so that everybody reads from the same page. Otherwise, CBC is a good system. If given support, if implemented very well, it will go a long way in shaping education in Kenya, and we will be ranked, I think, the best internationally. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The MP for Central Elementi, followed by MP for Likuyani and the MP for Mugirango West, West Mugirango. Proceed, MP for...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this very important motion of adjournment as pertains to what's existing at the present and which affect our society. The CBC model of education, as it is, if it's implemented as it is hypothetically, is one of the best. But it's very unfortunate as we speak, Mr. Speaker, sir, because of the hardship in which the students, the teachers, and even the parents are undergoing through this system. Areas are not the same, and there are some areas which are so remote to an extent that when the idea of CBC is talked about, to them it's a strange thing. They are taught, but it's just hypothetical. It's not practical. The research in which we were in this short recess has made us visit various places and checking on the students and even the infrastructure in various areas. And what we have come, especially what I have come to find in the rural areas, the system is so much down compared with urban areas. Because in some rural areas, what has been a problem in 844 system still persists. you find that no classes are adequate for the CBC, especially in the transition system from grade 8 to grade 9. You further find that in addition to the infrastructure, that's the classes, there are no adequate teachers. The teachers who are in those junior secondary schools are employed by BOM, by the parents. And the parents who are also struggling to get that little money to pay those teachers who are teaching there. And now we hear that there is a free education. We cannot have free education when teachers are being paid by parents, because TSC has not sent teachers in those places. More than that, we don't have enough labs for CBC to have practicals in those areas. We do not have them because we have no money, or the CDF money has not been dispatched adequately to cater for those infrastructures. They are not there. The only problem which I find that our children have been exposed to is that sincerely, the tribunals which have been formed to look at the models of education have been basically based on urban areas. Those elites, they have never included anybody from rural areas so that at least you can come up with an idea of what inflict the rural areas. They are just elites in urban areas, and what they come with, it becomes practicable in urban areas, but when it comes to rural areas, it's not very much effective. It's not effective in rural areas. So you find that life is very easy for those living in towns, but those living in rural areas, it's a challenge. It's not very possible for it to be implemented smoothly as it is supposed to be. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, you find it that it's somehow very difficult and challenging to the students in rural constituencies compared with those in urban areas. But now, here we are faced with a serious challenge of infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. If you look at it, in ordinary secondary schools which have been existing, the previous government set up funds to put up 2 classes extras to 84844. And now, other than to it for CBC, other than those 2 classes, there is an empty class now which has been left by Form 1s because we will not be having Form 1s next year. So you can see that we have 3 classes which are empty in secondary schools. What do you do about them so that they can be occupied by grade 9? By having those classes donated or having direct transition to secondary schools, we are going to solve a big problem which exists. Money is ours, which put up those classes. Students are ours. It's the same Kenya. Why can't we address it in that form where we have the executive putting the ends together with parliament, and we are going to have a very good solution for the problem which is facing us.
MP for Likuyani.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity, and I want to support Honorable Mbui on this motion, because as a country, right now we are at a very precarious position in matters education of our children, and the government changed this policy, and it is like a total paradigm shift. The only problem is that this change, we are not told how much money it will cost and where we will get that money. And I think it is very important, even as Parliament, that for us to allow a policy change, it must be accompanied by budgetary or monetary implication and where we are going to get the funding for that change. CBC might be very good, but as a country and our resources, are we able to implement it? And as we shift with these struggles, no money to implement, no budget, then who suffers? It is that child of the poor person that is going to suffer because of that shift. It is a generation that we are losing because of poor planning. And when you look at education in Kenya, and maybe health, these are the only things that the poor man can get directly from the government. And more important for education, it can help poor families to transit to wealth. Only education. And we have seen that. So it is something that we should never compromise. On my second issue, when I look at this system, that kid or the child will spend close to 11 years in, is it 11 or 9, in primary? 11, and only 3 years in secondary school. When you look at the first initial system, it was 7 years in primary, then we had 4 years and 2 years. Now, we have 11 and 3. Are we preparing this child adequately to face life in the university and education in the university and colleges? And to me, the answer is no. So we must rethink the whole system and see how can we increase the number of years that these children will spend in high school so that we prepare them adequately for the world, for the college, and for the university. And this will also help to solve the current problem that we have right now. Transitioning to grade 9, lack of infrastructure. To arrest this situation, I think the Ministry of Education should work to have those children in grade 8 right now transit to secondary school as grade 9. As they make a decision. And personally, I'll propose, if possible, we have primary up to grade 7. Grade 8 and 9 to go to secondary schools. Because they already have capacity, they have teachers, they have laboratories, they have workshops, and they have libraries. So we must not just look at it as a simple issue. We must relook, go back to the drawing board, and address these issues of CBC properly. I support.
The Honorable MP for West Mugirango.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me a chance to also make a contribution in support of this adjournment motion by my senior Honorable Robert Mbui. Indeed, education touches every home in this republic, and as elected members, we know better that every home that contributed the votes that brought us to Parliament deserves better when it comes to matters education. It is true that this CPC education system is now under implementation. I don't know when the conceivers, architects, and implementers of this system got their foot off the pedal for us now to have, as Parliament, to start interrogating our preparedness to transit the grade 9 students and also the grade 6 students. Truth be told, Mr. Speaker, we are facing a situation where we have an infrastructural crisis in the lower basic learning institution, while we will be having idle classes or excess capacity, as we call it in economics, in the secondary section. How can this country justify having idle classes in every secondary school in this republic when there is a congestion crisis in the lower learning institution? How soon have we forgotten what COVID can do, Mr. Speaker, when we congest our children where clearly we know there is no infrastructure? And as my colleagues have said earlier, education matters are matters this House should not compromise. We are the people who appropriate resources. And if there are not enough resources for education, then this House has no business sitting when the parents of those poor children cannot know where their children are going to in January. And this is why, arising out of this adjournment motion, Mr. Speaker, the CS of Education, and thank God is a new sheriff in town, should be summoned to this House, together with the PSS, to reassure this House and the Republic of Kenya that we are on course to have our children learn and transit to the next level of learning without interruption, without delay, and without congestion. Indeed, as a Member of Parliament in West Mogrango, I have done my part to build, or through our CDF committees, to improve and build new infrastructure to support education in my constituency and, of course, in the Republic of Kenya. But clearly, that will not be enough next year when the children are transiting to the next level. It is therefore important that this House commands the NGCDF board to ensure that every money that is meant to be spent in upgrading or developing school infrastructure, that money should have been released like yesterday. We cannot afford any further delay. Mr. Speaker, the National Treasury cannot hold education to ransom, because education is a national government function and it is us, members of parliament, who answer when these things go wrong. It is therefore because of that I am asking that this House stamps its authority and orders the National Treasury to release all the funds that are required to support infrastructure in this republic, so that our children do not, our children's education doesn't get interrupted. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed. You can have 1 more minute.
Thank you. Thank you.
1 more minute, yeah.
I thank God also then that the CEO now at the Treasury is one of us who just graduated there the other day, and he understands best what it means to have timely resources released to the constituency. So I urge in this House, pursuant to this motion of adjournment, to take very serious resolutions that will ensure that there is no interruption of learning in school and there is timely delivery of services in the education sector. For now, Mr. Speaker, all I can do is celebrate Honorable Robert Mbui for considering it fit to bring this motion of adjournment. And on behalf of the people of West Mogrango, I really thank you, Honorable Mbui, and say that when I grow up, I will be like you at bringing such motions. God bless. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, I think it's the time being slightly over 1 minute to 7. It's 6:58, so it's 1 minute and a half to 7. Honorable members, and the time being 6:58 and 35 seconds p.m. This House stands adjourned until Wednesday, the 18th of September, 2024 at 9:30 a.m.
Of the National Assembly and that over the Senate, that is the National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations over the Senate. So those are members walking in. Remember, the chair has been taken, but the House lacks the quorum, or rather the requisite quorum. So once that quorum is achieved, then the members or the House will commence its business. The report by the Committee, Public Debt and Privatization, this is a report on the Consolidated Fund Services, expenditures for the supplementary estimates, one for the financial